I'm Doug Brown. This season, the NFL will not be as forgiving about COVID-19 outbreaks, specifically among unvaccinated players. ESPN's Dan Graziano.
It's pretty harsh, but I think they're at a point where they feel like they have to be harsh in order to get this done. And by this, I mean the season played without disruption that could be prevented.
Dan Graziano on the Max Kellerman Show. The league says games could be forfeited and game checks could be lost if unvaccinated players are responsible for an outbreak. Giants running back Saquon Barkley will start training camp on the PUP list. He's coming back from a torn right ACL. Patriots cornerback Stephon Gilmore reported to camp today. He goes on the PUP list with a partially torn quad. Gilmore skipped the team's mandatory minicamp in June. He's hoping to get a new contract. Now that the NBA season is over, the Pelicans announced their new head coach today. Suns assistant Willie Green, who at 39 will be the third youngest coach in the NBA. Basketball Hall of Famer Bill Russell plans to auction most of the memorabilia from his remarkable career to raise money for charities. The auction will likely be held later this year and include all 11 of his championship rings with the Celtics, his 5 MVP trophies, and an Olympic gold medal. Just one day after stepping away from baseball, Yermin Mercedes is back with the White Sox AAA affiliate in Charlotte. Mercedes was sent down to AAA 3 weeks ago.
Hey, it's Greeny, headed towards a football Friday. Training camps are open. The Steelers and Cowboys have begun. The rest are right around the corner. We'll have all the big stories covered for you. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
Isn't this a sports show?
How do I make a button work over here?
Do I need to come in there?
No, absolutely not. Not allowed.
I don't know what you've done.
At the commercial break, by the way, we'll fix this. We'll Freaky Friday our way back.
Well, we'll see.
Maybe.
We'll wait.
I don't know.
Almost entirely.
How do I play
Just
a
click.
clicky button?
Click. You just
Click
part
one of the
3 has
buttons.
to be on. You click on it. What did you do?
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Which hotkey are you clicking? What are you trying to click?
I don't want to tell you. Don't come in here, Beers. No, Beers, go away!
But see, if you don't, I know you don't want to tell us, but at some point, you kind of have to
I'm
give us
trying not to
something
hit the
so we can
breaking
make it
news
work.
one, and it's not playing.
Is card 3 up?
Yes.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, hi, Jason.
Hey, ask Jason.
So why isn't this playing?
Oh, it's because this is old audio. It's being rejected. You have jammed up the whole. I need to reboot it.
See, I asked you if there was text in the top left corner.
April Fool's, Jason.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Finally, something like 18, 19 months after the start of a global pandemic that offset the sports world, finally today, I'm really happy to say I think we can officially re-embrace, the most traditional sports conversations that exist anywhere. Finally, after a year and a half of fights over epidemiology, viruses, masks, all of that, we've arrived to a place where tonight, mercifully, we can talk about vaccines. Wait a second. Damn it. We're still here in the time loop. Welcome into Almost Entirely Sports. I'm Joshua Brisco with Rudy Salazar and Beards McFly. The whole gang is here tonight. And I got to say, this is related only by the most obvious of connectivity points. It's actually related for a few reasons, I suppose. I had to go get a COVID test today, and those suckers come back in like 2 hours now. I got it all clear like 2 hours after I had it taken.
There are places you can get them in 20 minutes.
That's crazy. Yeah. It had been a long time since I'd had to take one, and I am, of course, obviously, fully vaccinated. But I had to go get a negative test before I could head up to St. Joe this weekend because that's a part of the protocols the Chiefs are putting out for media members and all of that. As one example that I can speak to directly in terms of how the NFL is operating throughout all of this. It is kind of funny that we're going vaccine cards, COVID tests, and masks while the Deer District exists. But those are some data points of how the NFL is handling some things The Chiefs are handling things within their own realm, and makes a lot of sense when you consider where we were at this time a year ago. The teams were being forced to stay home instead of going where they wanted to go for training camp and all of that. And today, in a lot of ways, symbolically for me, felt like a little bit of a step in the right direction, which was, immediately sandwiched between a whole lot of steps in some, I'll just say, other directions. Some things I think will be for the best. Some things are a bit discouraging, but the NFL did something really, really interesting today in terms of vaccines, in terms of what players can and can't do over the course of this season. And then we have a couple of new faces for the pushback to getting the vaccine in the NFL, which is, at least for me, again, a bit disheartening. But here's sort of the gist of what I think is the biggest story of the day, with, I guess, a hat tip to Texas and Oklahoma, and we'll probably get there at some point. We'll definitely get there at some point tonight, actually. We'll talk some Royals and trade deadline with David Lesky of Inside the Crown.
You sure you want to talk to Lesky? Because Dillard just commented. He's at a AAA Omaha, so he'll listen tomorrow. But maybe we just, Dillard, if you're still listening, maybe you just call, give us a scouting report on Bobby Witt.
I mean, I think that would be good. I definitely am more interested in the Storm Chasers and the Royals at this point. But
have fun watching. Hopefully, Bobby Witt gets a second inside the park home run.
We'll talk to Lesky about the Omaha Storm Chasers at 8, and then at 9 we'll talk to Harold Kuntz of Fox 4. Spent a good chunk of his broadcasting career in Oklahoma, so immediate sort of word association game is the reason I thought Harold would be the first person I wanted to talk to about some of this conference realignment stuff. He'll have a really good perspective on Oklahoma football, college football in the South, and Big 12 to SEC and all of that. We'll get to all that over the course of the show today.
I can break it down to you in 3 words.
I think it's 4 words.
4 words. Because at first I was going to say it means more than I remember.
There's an important 4th word.
It just means more.
That is 4 words. We do spend too much time together, though, because I was able to correct you telepathically just then.
You knew exactly where I was going.
100%, not a doubt in my mind.
There was not a second of thinking. It was just, know where he's going.
And also, I thought,
there's a better timeline.
I thought that there was a better chance that you miscounted to 4 than that I didn't know what you were about to say.
Yeah.
That's how tight the brand is at this point.
Yep.
So here's sort of the gist of what the NFL did today. Tom Pelissero has a summary here. I'm going to give you a few summaries. There are a lot of bullet points, and I'll try to help interpret some of these things for you. But as Tom Pelissero tweeted, as this news was just sort of breaking this around noon today, he tweeted, "The NFL just informed clubs that if a game cannot be rescheduled during the 18-week season in 2021 due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players, the team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with a loss for playoff seeding per sources. Massive implications." We'll get into some more implications here in a second. But if I was going to start with just this tweet, which is a pretty good summary of where we're at right now, with a red pen, here are some things I would just sort of circle. If a game cannot be rescheduled is interesting, because last year, every single game was rescheduled. We had the Broncos play games without quarterbacks, which they will do, it seems like maybe 17 more times this year. But we saw the Broncos play a game without a quarterback. We saw games played every single night of the week. We got a little Tuesday night football. We had the Steelers, I think, basically lost their bye week twice, essentially. We saw the Chiefs play the Patriots without Cam Newton. We've seen all of these moving parts in all of this last year, but also last year there was an even playing field for the most part. Everyone was playing with the same rules, and nobody had vaccines at their disposal, so every choice made was, masks and distancing and all of that. But it wasn't like there was, I guess I was going to say this is sort of a play on words, but it's literal. There wasn't a shot you could take to keep yourself away from most of those concerns, which is obviously currently on the table with the various COVID-19 vaccines. But last year they did schedule everything over the course of a 17-week season. This year's 18 weeks. So cannot be rescheduled is interesting. Due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players is interesting. And then a few more things come around with some more of the details here. So again, the quote directly from the memo. If a game cannot be rescheduled during the 18-week season is the phrase. And that's the phrase in the report that, to me, in the memo, that provides the most wiggle room in all likelihood. Because if you can move a game to a Tuesday, or if you can cost a team their bye week, but it gets the game played, is there threat of forfeiture there for the team with the outbreak? What if it's an outbreak among 2 or 3 players who were fully vaccinated and who were not there by their own choices, but by some bad luck? Seemed like that happened to Chris Paul. He was reportedly fully vaccinated, and he missed time. The NBA wasn't going to reschedule finals games, and if it's one player, they probably shouldn't reschedule anything. Guys miss time for injuries all the time. But if there is a big outbreak among unvaccinated players, the NFL is sort of signaling right now, hey, we have a nuclear option. And I think that ends up being, as a bit of a spoiler alert here, I think that ends up being the biggest point here. But I do wonder how far they would be interested in, they being the NFL, would be interested to bend to try to get these games played. Because there's also these snippets in here where if a game is canceled, essentially, short version, nobody gets paid on either team. Now, I think that is interesting because the NFL signals once again, hey, I'm going to stick with the Bills because the Bills have a few of these dudes, but Cole Beasley is sort of the face of NFL anti-vaxxer stuff at this point, which is going to land him a TV show somewhere in the near future.
Absolutely.
Just going to predict that now. Not even predict, guarantee.
Him and
he and Aubrey Huff are going to have the world's worst TV show.
I was gonna say I think
somewhere.
what we're gonna see is him and Will Kane.
Oh wow.
And that's but I mean same. We're essentially on the same page.
I hate to give Aubrey Huff any airtime at all, but he had a tweet that was cycling around because the MLB Network had I think it was MLB Network who had the crew. I think it was 4 or 5 women. It was a full female broadcast crew for a game for the first time in baseball history. And Aubrey Huff, who apparently has human beings in the world who think that he is a credible person to take his opinions of, tweeted, I believe the quote was, "Women are for after the game, not during it." And so, listen, I just want you to have all the facts if you're going to try to argue that Aubrey Huff has a functioning brain between his ears and that you would like to use his opinion for literally anything. Because I think at some point, when you're a large enough bleep hole, you sort of stop being a person that other people can hang their hats on vis-a-vis people who have any intelligence to use in any sort of point, in any conversation, in any form whatsoever. Anyway. I'm going to also say that we are here 7 months into the year and that's hopefully our one Aubrey Huff reference, and hopefully it won't happen again for the rest of 2021. I would like an Aubrey Huff vaccine. I would shoot that into my eyeballs. Anyway, as you said, Rudy, I love Drew Brees. So the pay scale stuff is interesting because it puts even more pressure on these players. I can't remember how we got to where we ended up. I'm just going to go back to the last thing I remember. If you have an outbreak with Cole Beasley and the Bills, and all of a sudden Chiefs-Bills now doesn't get played, maybe the Chiefs get a free dub there, and hey, extra bye week, free win, sure. Bad for your fantasy team, good for the Chiefs. But if that game doesn't actually happen, the only person that really benefits there, I guess, is Clark Hunt, because he doesn't have to sign as many game checks. Now, you might see a world in which a team would say, hey, I want to pay our players like as I would during a bye week or whatever. There's going to be some CBA stuff in there. And frankly, if I'm being honest, right now my money would be on there not being a forfeited game this season. What I'm more likely to believe is that the NFL will be a whole lot less lenient in terms of moving a game to get unvaccinated players back in the lineup. That's my guess. Again, as a bit of a spoiler alert here. I don't think we're going to see 1, much less 6 or 7 games forfeited in the 2021 season, just with the information I've got right now. Obviously, it could change just as much as anything, anywhere in sports. But I think the NFL saying, we'll do that if we have to, is another chip on the table to say, hey, players, just get vaccinated. And we're going to be able to avoid a lot of these problems that we didn't have a choice to avoid last year. Vis-a-vis choices and everything. Our friend of the show, friend of 810, everybody, Tom Martin, tweeted out a video. I think it was earlier today. I didn't see it until today, at least if he tweeted it last night. Tom lost his dad to COVID well before vaccines were available. He put out a video talking about that. I would encourage you to go check that out if you'd like to hear from somebody else who has some real experience there. I thought Tom's video was very good. But whenever you have a choice that can be made to avoid these problems that your league went through last year, the NFL is going to, at every turn, they're showing you, they're going to try to push their players, go get the shot, go get the shot, go get the shot. This will make everything easier for everybody. It will also benefit everyone. Because imagine being the player that starts an outbreak or just being among players in an outbreak. Let's say that there's a team, I think Washington is now above 50% in terms of vaccination rates. They were the lowest, and they were I think it was in the high 30s, last report that came out, but earlier today there was a tweet about them getting up into the 50s, which is great. But if half your team is unvaccinated and half your team gets hit by COVID protocols and you're out the minimum of 10 days because you're unvaccinated, the rules are different there for vaccinated and unvaccinated players, by the way, as is super reasonable given what we know. Maybe you're causing your team to completely lose a game. You're causing the other team to lose a game, and everyone is losing paychecks. That is a lot of burden to put on players who, look, Cole Beasley's not going to get vaccinated. All right? Like, I just at this point don't know if there's anything that could happen in the NFL for him to get vaccinated. But what a bunch of this stuff is for the players on the fence, the players who maybe just haven't done it yet or have had a little skepticism or whatever. If you go, man, I would just rather not, for whatever your reasoning is. And I would say, personally, I would find all the arguments I've seen, minus, I guess, if you have a medical reason to not be able to get vaccinated. The logic for I would rather not is pretty easily bested by the logic of, well, you still should. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the camp of, well, I'd rather not, that's who the NFL, I think, is most clearly pushing on here, saying, hey, reconsider, because here's what could happen if you don't. I think, again, with all of the language throughout this memo, it is all vague enough to keep a lot of options open whenever the season actually gets here. But I think the main point from the memo is the NFL saying, do not expect us to bend over backwards to benefit a team that has an outbreak among unvaccinated players. And we saw a mix of that last year, right? Because, again, they got all the games played, but whenever all the Broncos quarterbacks pulled their masks down not 6 feet apart, they did not bend over backwards to bail out the Broncos there. And so seeing exactly how that splits is going to be pretty interesting, but I think that the NFL is setting a bit of a precedent of you could cost yourself and other people money, playing time, games. Nick Saban said that Alabama football is like 90% vaccinated at SEC media days. There's a competitive advantage even without the league telling you what you should be doing. Very clearly, you will see that in the college ranks, especially at a place like Alabama. Hey, you come to Alabama to do a job, essentially. Get vaccinated. We don't want to mess with any of this bull bleep again this year. We dealt with it last year. I don't want to do it again. My guess is that's basically what Nick Saban's sort of convincing was there. But as all of this continues on, we're going to see the rifts that we are already seeing everywhere throughout the world. I think all of this is a really interesting way that the NFL is trying to put a little pressure and trying to signal something here that is already universally true around the rest of the world, which is that getting vaccinated is good for you and it's good for the people around you. If Rudy was in here going, yeah, guys, I'm just so you guys know, I'm just not going to get vaccinated, this show would be worse off for it. We probably would still have the plexiglass between me and Rudy, and everything would be more disjointed in a way that everyone who's worked in-person work over the last year and a half probably has a similar example of.
As compared to the fully, just the machine that we are.
Well-oiled machine that we are.
That's just, all those gears are just working perfectly.
Yeah, and
compared to that, it would be just disjointed and a mess, and yeah.
Now, Rudy is, of course, fully vaccinated.
Yes.
He does keep saying that he refuses to brush his teeth because he thinks it's a hoax. His teeth are falling out right now, and I should probably put the plexiglass back up just for the breath.
The science doesn't check out.
But, we're going one battle at a time.
Only
with
9
Rudy.
out of 10 doctors recommend toothpaste. Why not 10?
Makes you wonder.
What are they hiding from us?
Makes you wonder.
Beards, I can only guess if it was intentional or not. That is an incredibly poignant, sort of hasty comparison. That's a pretty... I'm just saying, I don't know if you were going for poignant or just funny.
Just
mostly
funny.
just funny.
But it was both.
But it worked.
Thank you.
But it's both, though. It really is.
It is.
Well, what does that one other doctor know? 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest Super White. What about get me Dr. Number 10 on the phone? I have some questions for them. I think I know what what are they trying to tell us?
You know what Dr. Tin knows?
About toothpaste.
You know what Dr. Tin knows?
That if you don't brush your teeth,
He knows
more claims.
that money isn't everything. He
That's
knows
right.
that
Didn't get bought by
his
big
science
toothpaste.
can't be bought.
Actually, he works for Colgate.
That might also just be it. Anyway, good reference,
Big
Beards.
Sensodyne fan.
It shows a little Sensodyne sometimes.
Yeah.
But as we see this happen in the NFL, we're seeing it across the world. You're going to get the stories that are going to come out of the league of these 4, I was going to say 4 unnamed Buffalo Bills, but I think we have at least 4 named Buffalo Bills. But these 4 members of the Buffalo Bills refused to be vaccinated, even though their team has forfeited 3 games in the 2021 season already. Here's what they think as in this anonymous tell-all. We're going to get those stories.
They just want to get the science behind it. They're just doing research.
That's right.
Takes a lot of time. Took a year to make the vaccine. You got to take at least a year of studying the vaccine. I mean, them personally. Not scientists.
And by
but them.
studying, you mean just reading Twitter.
Yeah.
It's just like talking to Cole. It's just texting Cole Beasley.
Probably one Facebook post from their uncle.
Yeah, that's probably right. So here's where we're seeing a little more, a few more things that I think are interesting. So DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best receivers in football, traded from the Texans to the Cardinals. Now looking like the Texans may have won that trade. Shout out to Bill O'Brien. Shout out to Bob. But
DeAndre, amazing. He was that flimsy, kind of straw or paper string holding it all together.
It was Bill O'Brien.
And you were you looked and you knew the slightest little budge and this is all going to come falling apart. But you're it's holding, I don't know how, but I'm not going to touch it. And then they touched it.
And now here we are. But so Hopkins, again, one of the best receivers the game has seen in a very long time, continuing his commitment to catching everything. Tweeted, never thought I would say this, but being put in a position to hurt my team because I don't want to partake in the vaccine is making me question my future in the @NFL. This tweet was deleted 30, 40 minutes later, something like that. And later he just tweeted the word freedom. Maybe with a question mark, can't remember. Just the word freedom, though. And a little bit before his freedom tweet, I tweeted something along these lines that continued to feel relatively pertinent here. And it's something else that, I think a more well-adjusted society would have figured out by now, but, we're doing what we can. Freedom to do what I want, something that we all would like to exist in as many forms as possible, right? And in large part, America does pretty well, right? I mean, there are ups and downs. But we do okay here. But freedom to do what I want does not mean freedom to do what I want without any consequences.
Yes.
And those can be practical consequences. In this instance, it can be getting sick, infecting others, being an incubator for some other form of COVID variant. Or it can be created consequences, which is forfeiting games or missing paychecks if it comes to that on the NFL level. Everyone understands this on some level, right? Freedom of speech is incredibly important. it is important that I could come on this radio station here and say, I'm going to invent a fictional president. His name is Big Dummy Head. This is not based on any current, former, or future president. This is just a cartoon president for a joke, for a point. But if I came on here...
orange cartoon
No, Rudy, stop it! It is very important to me that this is not any particular anything. But it's important to me that I could come on here and I could say, the president... here's what we'll say. America elected Garfield president of the United States, okay? I like that. This is much better. Not President Garfield. We don't already have one of those. Not that one.
Good point. I didn't even think about that.
Garfield the cat. It is strictly Garfield, the orange lasagna cat.
I hate
Voiced
Mondays.
by Bill Murray?
I'm eating lasagna cat.
No, it's fully cartoon still. It's 2D. It doesn't make any sense. And I go, wow, I think America really made a mistake electing a cartoon cat to be president.
Yeah.
Mondays are illegal now, and that sucks.
I'm sure you could call some of the presidents we've had two-dimensional.
Can you guys stop trying to get me in trouble on this one?
Didn't do a thing. I'm pitching out an orange cat.
And I could say, boy, I think it really stinks that America elected a legitimate cartoon cat to be president who made lasagna mandatory and Mondays illegal and said that we have to kill all dogs.
Might actually be the most fit cat in the history of cats.
I would say, wow, I think we messed up electing that cat president. I really think it's messed up that we're legally obligated to kill all of our dogs, okay?
But then just don't Tuesdays become Mondays at that point?
So my freedom of speech...
Already Sundays become Mondays. It's even worse.
I'm ignoring both of you until I land this plane.
Tuesdays are now Mondays.
My freedom of speech is that I can say I think it's terrible that we elected this terrible cat president and who wants to kill all of our dogs. And then I should not be arrested by the government for saying that. That's First Amendment free speech, right? But if I came on here and I said, Patrick Mahomes broke into my house and killed my dog, and he should be arrested. Beards, don't cut that, because this is for a point. Unmark that.
I can't unmark it.
Okay, well, don't use it. Because
I'm definitely going to save it.
If I said, could you guys shut the bleep up for 4 seconds? If I said that, I would face consequences for slandering Patrick Mahomes, who has explicitly, to be clear, never broken into my house, and I'm sure that Patrick Mahomes and Scout the dog would be the best of friends. Because Scout loves everybody, and Patrick Mahomes is a dog person.
You could have just said it's illegal to yell fire in a movie theater.
But I've heard that one before, and I want Garfield, I want President Garfield the cat, and I want Patrick Mahomes to meet Scout. That's where my head is at. Jeff Passan was in here for the program today. And if I said...
He broke news while doing the show.
In the hallway.
Which was fantastic.
And if I said, Jeff Passan on his way out, need beards in the crotch, that would be something that I should not be saying, because it's simply not true.
Yeah. Punched him.
I would have consequences for that.
That's also
like true. Passan could come beat me up. I wouldn't want to fight Passan.
No.
But with all of that as I really feel like that analogy could have been wrapped up in about 6 fewer minutes with just a slightly more helpful crew around me. Or just less of a crew around me, frankly.
Chaotic Warrior on Twitch asked, did Josh just say Mahomes killed his dog?
I was going to make the joke, which you might be getting soon, because we all might be quarantining again before too terribly long, unfortunately.
There are consequences to choices, even ones that you are allowed to make.
Yep.
Another thing that I think is interesting about what Hopkins is tweeting and the people in his headspace, where they're kind of missing the most important point of all of this, is that not getting the vaccine is already, to quote his original tweet, being put in a position to hurt my team. Because
but he's the victim.
And that's where it becomes, right? That's where it comes.
It is. His tweet is essentially, and like this is the thing that where it's just getting very old. His tweet is essentially saying, "I'm the victim here."
That's right.
Woe is me.
I don't really want to do this
You're
thing.
Not the victim.
You're asking me to do
you're
this
quite
thing.
Literally the opposite in this scenario.
Right, and you have a chance to prevent there being other victims.
And if you don't want
Actual
to,
victims.
and if you don't want to, fine. It's your choice. But every choice has consequences. Like, every choice you make, something comes from that, right?
Right.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes something that really doesn't affect you in any way. If you don't want to get the vaccine, fine, don't. But you're going to have to deal with a more difficult work life and the possibility of putting your team in a bad situation.
That's
and putting players on other teams into bad situations and possibly causing people money. And if you have a problem with that, get vaccinated. Or you know what? Don't play football this year. Retire. Go home. Stay home.
Not everything is a pure 1 or 0 choice.
Yeah.
You can weigh the scales and whatever, and the NFL clearly is trying to put their foot on the scale of get vaccinated because that's what they want their players to do. It clearly, I will not push back at all on the idea that the government is putting their foot on the scale of, hey, go get vaccinated because that's the thing they want you to do. It's also what science wants you to do and what your primary care doctor wants you to do. I mean, that's sort of it's what the economy wants you to do. It's what, really, whoever it is that you would fill into your blanks here, your favorite TV personality, your favorite president, current or former, has already done. They've gotten vaccinated.
Yep.
And that's why what the NFL did today here I think is interesting is because it's another step of them saying we're going to continue to try to add more benefits to the lives of unvaccinated players and also make it more difficult and make it more have there be more potential drawbacks to not getting vaccinated. They're not mandating it amongst their players, but they can try to tip the scales. Stephon Diggs of the aforementioned Bills, by the way, just simply tweeted accountability, ... availability. And that's the message that I think the NFL and a lot of coaches are going to have to get across to, again, some more of these guys in the margins. Also, it does make me think that, with that tweet being out there and kind of pushing back on Josh Allen and clearly pushing back on Cole Beasley, the 4 games a year that Cole Beasley and Josh Allen are on the field together, they are going to be an electric connection. It's just probably not going to be many more than that. That's not reasonable, but it is kind of funny.
It's very funny.
This is sort of feeding the fed horse, if you will, but if we can get through this part of it, this segment, we'll leave it for the rest of the show, and at least until we talk to Harold later. Kevin Blackistone, who you probably know from Around the Horn on ESPN, he tweeted, what the DeAndre Hopkinses of the world don't understand is that freedom and responsibility exist symbiotically. I thought that was a pretty good way of framing it. Again, maybe we're tilling over the same ground, and maybe most people listening right now are sick of it because they get it. Maybe you're sick of it because you don't. I don't know. But it's where we are today. And it is the continual reminder for me that nobody exists in a vacuum. And it's something that I've tried to talk about for the last year and change, and will probably be talking about for the rest of my life, honestly, because this is not COVID specific. It's all sorts of things, all sorts of governmental things, societal things, sports things, whatever. It's something that is consistent in the fabric of society, or any functioning one at least.
And it's the way that we continue to we are trending in the direction of it being of things like this being more and more and more decisive, like.
Divisive,
yes. Like the next, vaccine, and then by vaccine, I'm using air quotes, like not an actual vaccine, but whatever that thing is, it's probably going to be a more frustrating, worse argument than what this is, right?
Probably. Yeah, it sort of feels like that's the direction we're headed in.
It seems like we are moving in that direction. Maybe at some point it'll stop and things will turn around, but it seems like we are heading in that way. And we're continually heading in that direction.
And if we could turn it around on this one, maybe we're not doomed to that sort of ghost of future, of Christmas future that Rudy is sort of taking us along the ride of, even though it does seem like that's what it is right now. Maybe you got a chance to turn the car around. But specifically to the vaccine side of things, and then again, we'll probably leave it alone for the rest of the show. But maybe you sprinted to get a vaccine appointment as soon as physically possible, which is what I did. Shout out to that vaccine Twitter bot that was extremely important for about a month of my life, and then I unfollowed. I don't need it again, though. Still, shout out, great work.
Hey, those are like the people who got me my PlayStation 5.
Exactly.
Followed them.
Hugely important.
Notifications were turned on. For 2 months of my life, he was very important in my life.
Yep.
And bye-bye.
I still follow him.
You're still trying to get that Xbox.
Yeah.
One day, Beards.
One day.
I do wish, Beards, you would stop saying that you'll get vaccinated as soon as you get that Xbox.
Yeah.
I just wish you would
Hey now.
I wish you would just do the vaccine first. But maybe you were on the vaccine bot and got there right away. Maybe you were not in a rush, but eventually went because someone around you is immunocompromised. Or maybe you went because the Delta variant is chugging right along and is still really out here trying to make itself known. And maybe you're feeling that there's even more heat on you now to try to protect yourself, the people around you. Maybe enough people around you had gotten either the vaccine or COVID itself, and it swayed you in some way, whatever. Even though if you're not worried about your own health throughout this process, if you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, I have a thought and a question. The thought is that it's a really easy thing to do, and the question is, could you just do it for the people around you? And that is the not existing in the vacuum thing that becomes that becomes the fed horse here, but that I just don't think can be overstated because it is so deeply important to understand for pretty much anything, but it's especially now. There are a very small number of breakthrough cases and a tremendously larger number of people who are not vaccinated who are going back to the hospital, who are dying from this at a rate that is looking a whole lot more like the one pre-vaccine. As people go out more, I feel pretty safe going out and going about my day. But if you also are living that way and you end up running up with somebody who has the Delta variant, now you guys are both in danger, and there's a chance that by some bad luck I end up there also. But we could do it, if not just for yourself, we could do it for the people around you. And I would like to think that it would be a really easy thing to do for yourself. I mean, it is, on a literal level, a very easy thing to sign up for, go do, and go back home. And maybe as you see the hospitalizations and deaths spike among the unvaccinated, if you get it begrudgingly or because Missouri is doing a lottery or for a free scarf at a sporting game, all of these are real things, by the way, or because you think it might be a way to keep a moron on the radio from nagging at you for continual months into the future, I don't particularly care why you end up getting vaccinated. I would love, I guess, for it to be for a very altruistic and excited reason. But if it's begrudging or because you're finally just decide, you know what, all right, fine, I'll do it, I'll happily sign up for that.
Totally.
And again, I don't really care where or why, or even at this point when you would get vaccinated. But it would sure be helpful if you would. And that's the thing that I sort of lose my not my cool, but I start seeing things a little more dimly whenever that request or suggestion or conversation is shouted back down with some sort of resounding no. But we'll see how the NFL handles it. We're seeing how the NFL handles it. We're seeing how the country is currently handling it. And I would love for this to be the last time that we talk about COVID on the radio, and it also 100% will not be.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Who would you rather have as president, a baby or a puppy?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That president baby versus president puppy show was like an entire show on the ESPN Kansas City days, right, Beards?
It was like a whole, at least, hour.
We spent a lot of time on the merits of president baby versus president puppy. And I think that was probably before the Boss Baby franchise. Or maybe it was even inspired by it, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. Because that really, I think, Boss Baby really, I think set some unrealistic standards for babies in the professional world. Also, I've not watched any of the Boss Baby movies, but I would watch a movie called Boss Puppy. I definitely would be more likely to watch that.
That spinoff is coming.
I'm here for it. Like, I wouldn't, I'm not saying it would be good. I'm saying I would watch it, though.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I thought about diving back into the president baby versus president puppy thing, and I think it could only get more dangerous from here, so I'm going to actually go to something less controversial, which is conference realignment, baby!
It's been a while.
Or puppy, I guess. It has been a while.
It's been a minute.
And it started, it went from 0 to 1,000 in like 24 hours.
With none of us like knowing it was happening. It was just all of a sudden, it was just boom.
Here's
we're on.
I really think it was probably 36 hours ago or so where we got the idea that like Texas and OU might be looking to leave the Big 12 for the SEC.
Yep.
And let me skip to the end of the story before we connect some of the dots in the middle. About a couple hours ago, a report came out that the Big 12 was having a meeting with the heads of the 10 schools in the Big 12.
School presidents.
And it was not including OU or Texas's presidents, but they were invited.
Yes. They were not there because they were not invited. They were, in theory, supposed to be on said call.
Listen, they just had they had stuff going on at the same time as each other. It's just a coincidence.
And they said new phone, who dis?
The invitation rejection, to me, is the most important part in terms of predicting the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say, hey, the other 8 presidents are getting together to figure out what they're going to do to try to keep you guys here or what the plan is if they bolt, that's one thing. But if they were hoping to get in the room with the other 2 presidents or get on a call or whatever, and then they found out that the other 2 that the Texas and OU presidents were not going to be there, at that point, I have to think that meeting became a little bit of, so what are we doing here? Yeah. Because the subject of this meeting, we were trying to have a double intervention, and the schools you were trying to have an intervention with did not show.
Yep.
And it kind of feels pretty close to ball game. Because here's, just to try to find Occam's razor on this, and will the SEC let these teams in? Mizzou and Texas A&M do not want Texas and OU joining the SEC. That seems pretty clear. But I think they would need 1 or 2 more no votes to keep that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Texas and OU would like to go to the SEC because there's more money in SEC football than there is in Big 12 football.
Especially in those TV deals. Just to add to that, so people, Max Olson, I believe, was the one to tweet this out, who covers I think he's just a national college football reporter now for The Athletic, but he came up on covering the Big 12. I believe it was him. If it was somebody else who tweeted this, my bad. Basically, it was like, what happens to Longhorn Network, right? Because that was kind of the big thing with keeping Texas in the Big 12. They get the Longhorn Network. They get all this money. And he simply said, it will cease to exist, and Texas will make more money off the SEC deal than they do off the Longhorn Network because the SEC TV deal pays all their schools more than Texas makes off the Longhorn Network.
Wow. God, the SEC makes a lot of money.
Yep. And also, the Longhorn Network has just been a utter colossal failure. It just never.
Did you say utter because Longhorns are a type of cow?
I didn't, but
it sounded like you said an utter disaster. That's how I heard it. And I'm going to give you credit for it regardless because it got us here.
Thank you.
And so I'm just simply glad that we're here.
It has not been good. It is not. It did not grow the way they thought it would, which is honestly, it's not surprising because they don't have the content necessarily to fill. Like they technically have 24.
Team.
Yeah, they are filling 24 hours, but it's 24 hours of mostly stuff nobody cares about. And the one football game they get is against Kansas, which weirdly enough they seem to lose.
Yeah. So the reason, and with that in mind, because I think the one counterpoint that I could come up with of, hey, if this isn't ball game, what would be the reason that there's still an opening here or whatever? Mm-hmm. And I think it would be that this would be a leverage play.
Yeah.
But here's the question that would follow that one. What could the Big 12 give to Texas or Oklahoma that they haven't already given them? A Sooner network is not going to do it for the reasons you just laid out. The Longhorn network is not going to keep them there. There are, I mean, the landscape of college sports and really maybe most specifically college football is very much in flux. In Texas and OU, like this is probably a pretty unpopular thing to have to acknowledge in very much Big 12 country, but Texas and OU are the anchors. Mm-hmm. Like because so much is built on football. Those are your football schools. You know, Iowa State's making an interesting run, and you've got a lot of interesting basketball in the conference where you're going to see KU at the top. Probably going to see KU and Baylor at the top now, it seems, obviously, for a while. But the Big 12, with 10 teams currently, doesn't really have I don't think they have anything else to offer. I don't really think there's a counterpoint. If OU and Texas, which would be two great additions for the SEC, I would think, if they can get approval to hop into the SEC, I don't know why they wouldn't go, and I don't know why the SEC wouldn't take them.
There's only two things that I can think of that like pop up, just at the top of my head, and maybe there's another one I'm not thinking of. One of them is financial based, and it would be the rest of the Big 12 schools essentially, because the way it works is every school gets an even amount of money. Mm-hmm. The only way you can get the Texas and Oklahoma more money is by essentially agreeing that the other 8 schools, we will all take $5 million less, and that goes Oklahoma and Texas. And that happening.
Does that sweet spot exist?
It
seems unlikely.
The schools being willing to do that seems
that's right.
Incredible. The other thing might be is it's just simply trying to convince them, like, and maybe this argument works better for Texas than does Oklahoma because Oklahoma's had a good team, but it's just, yeah, you'll make more, you can make more money, but the competition is now so much stronger. Yeah. Are you going to be able to, for Oklahoma, I don't think it matters much. I certainly think it honestly might help them. I think Oklahoma's getting great recruits playing in the SEC. I think it's going to allow them to get even better recruits because it's the SEC. Texas is the one where they might all of a sudden go like, hey, we've been struggling in the Big 12. I don't know if we can play. But the flip side is once Texas A&M, Max Olson, I know he did tweet this out, once Texas A&M left for the SEC, a huge number of recruits started going to the SEC, not just A&M, but other SEC schools. A&M going to the SEC kind of opened up that recruiting pipeline. If Texas now joins the SEC, maybe there are other Texas recruits who normally, in the old days, they were always getting, who all of a sudden kind of seems like they've stopped getting. Maybe they start getting them again. Maybe now all of a sudden Texas is finally back. The only thing I can think of is it's coming up with some outrageous money deal, which just maybe hurts all the other schools in the long run, or just trying to convince them that they can't compete year in and year out, and that somehow that will hurt them because they'll still make the money, which ultimately at the end of the day these decisions are made by the school president. The AD and the head coaches absolutely have say, but the president are the ones making these decisions. At the end of the day, the president might not care if the football team is quite as good if it means making $20 million more a year.
The money is going to be the determining factor because I know that a lot of people believe that money was just legally added to college sports like 2 weeks ago with the name, image, likeness stuff. I hate to inform you, that's not the case. Sorry to be the one that has to break this to you. Whenever you're ready, I'd like to talk to you about the Tooth Fairy, but we'll get there later. Mm-hmm. But to your point of here, maybe this is the way the Big 12 tries to push back on that. I don't see there being an amount. You would have to have other Big 12 teams lopping off limbs and then trying to hand them to Texas and Oklahoma saying, can you build another person with that? Is this good enough for you? When they can go over to the SEC and just have everything that they would want from that group without having to, and the Big 12 could just say, bleep it. We will, because also you have the SEC, for by the way, for the Texas OU degree of difficulty in SEC football thing, the playoff is expanding. Yep. And I didn't say that it has expanded. It is expanding. Yeah. And it will probably continue to do that. The SEC could end up with enough big guns, and maybe they want to add beyond Texas and Oklahoma. You might see a whole new sort of redistricting of the SEC. You could see things totally realigned just within that conference as they build the football conference.
The big fight is going to be who ends up in the East and who ends up in the West.
Right.
Nobody wants to be in the SEC West.
But
my guess is what they would do is well, I mean, I guess they could do it either way, but like the big fight is going to be Oklahoma and Texas deciding who gets to play Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and South Carolina every year, and who is stuck with Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia.
Yeah, not ideal.
Because no school really wants to deal with that.
But also,
you'd rather have the money.
You get to play those teams and be on TV playing those teams.
For sure.
Even if they're out there taking away your bowl, your playoff spot.
My guess, and obviously, like Oklahoma would probably rather play Alabama once a year in the SEC title game.
Absolutely.
But that's
a future them problem.
And that's something that's like they'll have left at that point, right? They'll have been agreed to come in and they'll figure that is just the figuring out the details. And either way, if both schools agree, it's not to go to the SEC. This is not some we agree to go to the SEC, but only if we're in the East or only if we're they're just going to the SEC.
The next step, and there's no reason to get this far ahead of it.
Fans will just be mad that they're stuck getting killed by Oklahoma every year,
right?
Or Alabama every year that they get stuck in the West.
100%. The questions that I think, and again, this hasn't officially landed yet, so we'll get there when we get there. But the questions then of what will happen to the Big 12 will be fascinating because does the Big 12 become simply a basketball conference? What does their playoff spot end up looking like? Do they try to bring in some AAC teams, or do other teams leave the Big 12? Is the Big 12 the one at the end left holding the ticket, or can the Big 12 try to bolster their roster back up, which is something they haven't gotten back to 12 yet. So the idea that they're going to go from 8 to 12,
8 to 9, I think,
seems baby steps.
Yeah,
baby steps.
Start with 9. We'll think about 10. They didn't get back up to 12. I don't know if they'll ever get back up to 10.
How many teams are in the Big 10 again? It's like 16, right?
12.
Is it 12 in the Big 10?
Yeah, 12 in the Big 12 in the Big 10.
How many are in the Pac-12?
12.
I was
14?
genuinely asking. David
12. Lesky is next.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Setup.
Hello there. I'm Mark Robbins. Major League Baseball going on right now at Fenway Park in Boston. Actually, it was going on, and now they're in a rain delay. Yankees with a 1-0 lead on the Red Sox. Top of the fifth, rain delay, although it looks like the tarp is about to come off. Elsewhere, Atlanta leads Philadelphia 6-0 in the sixth. San Diego on top of Miami. Score there 2-0 in the fifth. Off the field, the Tampa Bay Rays making a big move, trading minor league pitching prospects to Minnesota for Twins DH Nelson Cruz. And there are some rumors the Nationals might be willing to trade ace Max Scherzer. However, ESPN MLB insider Tim Kirkchin thinks that's not going to happen because the Nats are going to go in the opposite direction, Tim says, and be buyers in the trade market.
Not saying they should be, but I think they will be because that's Mike Rizzo's MO. And therefore, I think they're going to keep Max Scherzer. And yes, I'm sure he should ask for an extension to waive his no trade. And then, the Nationals may look at this. If we deal him and he doesn't get an extension, we can always bring him back for next year, much like Aroldis Chapman with the Yankees and the Cubs.
That's Tim Kirkchin earlier on Bart and Hahn here on ESPN Radio. The NFL today issuing a memo league-wide containing a warning to all teams threatening forfeits instead of rescheduling games that aren't played due to COVID-19 outbreaks. The league urging teams and organizations to get all players and staff vaccinated.
It's Bart Scott, and on Friday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, we're one day closer to the defending Super Bowl champions reporting to training camp, and we'll tell you who's the closest to winning it this year. Friday morning on ESPN Radio.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
All right, so right now, if you want to go to the Inside the Crown newsletter, you can go to bit.ly/Lesky hates Bobby Witt, and it will take you there. And whenever Lesky starts calling for Bobby Witt to come up, I will change that URL, which I can do, to bit.ly/Lesky loves Bobby Witt. But right now, bit.ly/Lesky hates Bobby Witt.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Time for an hour with David Lesky. He's in studio. Hi,
I'm
Lesky.
Here. Hi.
You can follow him on Twitter at DBLesky. You can read his work in the Inside the Crown newsletter, intothecrown.substack.com. Royals review
Inside
over there.
the crown.
Did I say it wrong?
Hit into the crown.
Did I?
We're not stepping into any crown.
Up and under the crown.substack.org.
Step into the crown as you read inside the crown.
It's actually .gov.
Crowntalk.substack.gov/Lesky hates Bobby Witt.
There's a bulletin, I think, now too, right? .bulletin.
Is that a new
I think
one?
it's like a new thing. It's the same. I think it's a Substack, but I think it's called Bulletin. Because I think I saw Roger Bennett, who is a soccer guy, is doing
I know who Roger Bennett is.
Okay, I was saying. But I believe he's doing a similar thing, but through Bulletin.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. Well, so anyway, it's
Inside
inside the crown.substack.com.
Well, Substack is the good one, and Bulletin is like, hey, we can recreate
Bleep
this.
those guys.
Yeah.
No.
Get out of here,
No,
Bulletin.
I don't want to read anything on Bulletin. I want to read insidethecrown.substack.com with David Lesky. Rudy. Unbelievable. Can't believe you would do this to Lesky while he's sitting right here.
Speaking of Bobby Witt, apparently his dad is at the game in the Omaha broadcast.
What's his dad's name again?
Bobby Witt Sr.
That makes sense.
I believe it's Bob Witt Sr.
Bobbert
Witter.
That's probably. But
Beard's just angrily banged the desk because he was going to say Bobbert.
The Omaha broadcast apparently asked him who he would compare his son to, and his response was, I do not know any of these players, Lesky. Maybe you know them. Scott Fletcher, Kevin Elster, and Mike Bordick.
Yes, I know the players. They are...
And I think
they certainly played baseball.
I think
Mike Bordick was the shortstop in Baltimore who took over for Ripken when Ripken moved to third.
He's a regular on the Border Patrol, right?
I think so.
That's Boddicker.
I know it's Boddicker.
Bordick was a good player.
I think he was, like, based off the fact that I didn't really know these players. My guess was he was trying to think of three lesser players because he's not trying to say his son is the next A-Rod.
Alex
Honus
Wagner.
Wagner.
Honus Wagner.
Yeah. Those players have existed in baseball. I feel like Bordick is a coach maybe somewhere.
Let's find out.
Or Mike, I don't know. Maybe he just went to a game this year.
Beards can be kind of a Bordick sometimes during the show.
I hear that.
Loses interest and the other half of it.
Good.
Lesky, believe it or not, I have some very serious baseball things I want to ask you.
He's in the Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame.
Hey, I mean, he was good.
Now I'm bored. Go ahead, done with that.
So he was.
Oh, God, it's good. This is one of Rudy's.
Since
go ahead.
2012, Mike Bordick has served as a part-time color analyst for Orioles telecasts on MASN with Jim Palmer. On January 26, 2021,
that's my birthday.
Bordick was let go by MASN.
Happy birthday to me.
That's the end of the story.
Lesky called in a favor for his birthday, and he got it done.
He did work in the Orioles organization, though, as a minor league offensive coordinator, which...
Do you not know if he did or?
No, it's just offensive coordinator is not a title I've ever heard of in baseball, I guess.
Well, they had to keep Bordick.
I guess he calls the option plays.
Yeah, that's fair. The hidden runs.
Yeah,
okay.
He calls the home run plays.
There were 2 sentences in his coaching and broadcasting career. That's it.
Well, I hope he's doing wonderfully.
I now know more about Mike Bordick than I ever wanted to know.
I will forget it by this time tomorrow.
It's the record for most consecutive error-less games, 110, by a shortstop.
I think I would have guessed that somebody would have gone longer than that.
And shortstop,
I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot.
And chance is 543.
I think official scores have gotten soft.
Interesting.
So,
maybe we see that getting broken
They've
soon.
Definitely gotten soft.
Yeah,
this is my one old well.
It's going to be over 5 seasons, but he's going to break it.
That was yes, 100%.
If we can get 110 games from Mondesi in 5 years, I might sign up for that right now.
Let's not. And by let's not, I mean let's not sign up for that, and also let's not talk about Alberto Mondesi right now. The handful of things. Eventually, Lesky, I'm going to try to have you just maybe next segment, just make me care about the Royals for the remainder of this year in some form. But what I wanted to talk about actually tonight is a bunch of the trade deadline stuff, and in part the fact that the Royals had some pretty terrible luck. I think I've pulled all of the names of the guys that you had a roughly 50-ish% chance of getting traded in the wonderful InsideTheCrown.substack.com newsletter. But a couple of those guys were immediately jeopardized by injuries. The only 1 year left players that you had a 50 to 60-ish% chance of getting traded were Danny Duffy and Michael A. Taylor. Just starting with those guys, I talked a little bit about Duffy over the last few days, the 10-5 rights and everything, but it sounded like he'd be open to going to California. You wrote about how I think the Padres made sense. I think the Padres are just the team I'm always going to assume because they're out here to win baseball, period.
And they trade with the Royals a lot.
It's a good relationship.
I mean, it's all the time.
All of that makes a lot of sense. What do you think the adjusted odds are right now on Danny Duffy, knowing that he is still, I mean, not only on the IL at the moment, but in a kind of perpetual injury concern?
Yeah, I mean, if it kind of depends. If he can come back this season, obviously, it sounds like the Giants are still interested. Mm-hmm. Dodgers and Padres are still in on him. I would imagine. Yeah, we don't know what John Sherman's going to do, if he'll eat some salary, but I could see the A's getting in on that if they actually would eat some. I don't think the A's would pay Duffy. What does he have left? Like $6 million this year, probably. So I don't see the A's paying that. But if they eat some salary, I think the A's would. The problem is we don't know if he's going to come back or not. I mean, we saw that he is getting a second opinion. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up. I thought I saw that somewhere, heard that somewhere. If you're getting a second opinion, it's because the first opinion's bad.
Yeah.
You don't get a second opinion when the doctor's like, hey, you're great. No, you just take that opinion and you say, yeah, I'm good. I'm happy. So we'll see. I think if we, I read an article today that says he's expected back in early August. Well, I don't know how you can expect him back in early August, but whatever. If he's back in early August, I think he can still get traded. I think that's pretty likely. It's not anything that I would worry too much about. The problem is if he's not there, it's zero. I mean, if he's not going to pitch, obviously there's no way anybody's going to trade for him. If you don't know if he's going to come back, even if you think, he might come back in late September, you're not trading for the guy.
Right.
And so it all depends on when he's back. So I think if he can come back early enough, I think, it's still the same odds. But I don't know. Who knows?
What about some of the wider-ranging stuff? There was the snippet from Ken Rosenthal in The Athletic. He was writing about Whit Merrifield, and he wrote the following. The Royals, though, have told other teams they believe they are close to contention and are signaling that they do not want to trade established major leaguers for prospects who might not join them for 3 or 4 years. That could make it difficult for them to match up with clubs that have expressed interest in Merrifield. Your thoughts?
Dumb. No, I mean, I actually have a whole thing coming out tomorrow.
Excellent.
About what they need to do to contend in 2022. How close are they actually? And the reality is, there are two ways to look at a team. The way a fan probably should look at a team, honestly. A true fan should always be hopeful, I think. And I'm not saying that if you're pessimistic, you're not a true fan. But, like, it's more fun to be a fan thinking that everything's going to work. Right?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, that's just, it's the reality.
Definitely more fun. Yes. Expecting misery is a miserable way to be a fan.
And as Kansas City fans, especially before Mahomes, I think we expected misery pretty much from every team in the area. No matter who you root for in college or pro, whatever, it was probably going to end poorly.
Yeah.
Up until really 2014. 2014 was the year. I guess Sporting won in 2013, right? So you want to go back that far, okay. But up until then, it was things are going to go poorly. If you root for them and you're from Kansas City, it's going to go poorly. The problem that I see with the organization a lot is that they are the fan that thinks everything is going to work perfectly.
Yeah.
And so it's okay if you're sitting on your couch and going, well, of course they're going to contend because Singer's going to turn a corner, and Bubic is going to turn a corner, and Lynch and Coar are going to turn a corner and be good.
Dozier's back.
Dozier's hitting 340 in his last 12 games or whatever.
Horace
And
Salazar's
Witt and
about to sign
Prado
an
are going to come up
extension.
and dominate. And Melendez is going to dominate. And yes, absolutely. Because you can look at any player on this roster, and there's optimism. There's reason for optimism with just about everybody. It's not like they're running out Scott Ellerton on opening day. So I understand that. The problem is the front office needs to see it from the opposite side. The front office has to assume nothing's going to work, in my opinion. And part of the reason why the Royals are where they are right now is because they assumed that their lineup 1 through 7 was going to be intact and good all season long. They assumed that the young pitching was all going to take a step forward. They assumed all these things, and the reality was Mondesi's played 10 games. Soler and Dozier have been horrible outside of Soler the last 2 games, and Dozier's got a nice little stretch going. Sure. So be fair to him, he's played really well for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We're 14 weeks into the season, whatever it is. So I think by not having those contingency plans, and it's not entirely fair because I think that they are probably. I mean, I never thought this was the year. I had them at 76 wins. Let's be real. That's if you think I was optimistic about this team, then you were really pessimistic, and you were probably right as it turned out. But that's another story. They need to be looking at this from the non-everything's going to go right category because their job is to prepare for the worst. The fans' job is to assume the best. And I think that the front office way too often does the fans' job while the fans are left having to do the front office's job preparing for the worst.
Yeah, and I think you're right that's the exact inverse of what it should be, because this is something we've talked about. I don't know why this is the guy that I have attached to this phrase now, and I'm also apparently really just hell-bent on getting this phrase out into the sports media world. But whenever we've talked about Willie Gay and what he'll do in his second year with the Chiefs, right? Just a linebacker, didn't get a lot of playing time last year, but was a second-round pick. I think we often get in trouble whenever we assume the ceiling and assume that players are going to hit it. I also think that if you assume the worst case scenario all of the time, you're going to have a hard time actually contending there. Maybe it makes you a little more willing to, act and react. But if you assume that every single thing is going to go exactly according to your best case scenario, if you assume the ceiling, anything less than every player hitting that ceiling sends you into a tailspin. You have no plan B because plan A is simply going to work out. So ahead.
Look at the Padres. We just mentioned them. They want to win. Look at what they did. They went out and they got Darvish. They got Snell. They got Musgrove. They already had Lamet, Clevenger. I'm gonna miss a couple names. Whatever, it doesn't matter. They already had these guys, and they said, you know what, things could go bad.
Yeah.
And you know what, things have gone bad.
Yeah.
But where are they? They're in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
They're not as good as they thought they'd be probably. But part of that's because the Giants are way better than they thought they'd be, and so there's that. But like they looked at their roster and they said, where could things go wrong? Let's supplement.
Yeah.
Let's get guys for the spots where things could go wrong, and the Royals didn't.
Right.
Really. I mean, they went out. They filled holes. They needed a first baseman, Carlos Santana. Good signing.
Yep, worked out great.
They needed innings. They went out and got Mike Minor. He's given innings. They haven't always been good, but whatever. They filled that hole. They needed a stopgap center fielder. They went out and got Michael A. Taylor. He's been fine.
Sure.
I mean, people hate him because I don't really know why.
He's not Lorenzo
actually,
Cain.
I guess.
Yeah. Whatever.
I mean, he's less
Never
than $2
forget
million.
opening day.
So yeah, he was great on opening day. The whole series actually.
Yeah, it was.
But
very good.
He's been fine. But what they didn't do is they didn't say, what if Soler's not good? What if Soler struggles? What if Dozier, who has had an injury issue his whole career, what if he misses some time or alters his swing because of a thumb injury? What if that happens? I don't know. And they didn't really account for that. And I think in some ways the organization is better prepared for that in the future because this is getting down a huge rabbit hole in the minors, but their offensive development is so much better. We've seen it. And we talked about this last year. One of the things that I was so upset about was we didn't get to see what all the changes would do last season. We didn't get to see Prado and Melendez and Sully and Matias, although he hasn't played much this year either. But the power's there right now. We didn't get to see what they could do, how they could rebound. And now we've seen it. And we've seen guys like Michael Massey become legit prospects. We've seen Rudy Martin get up to AAA, and he's knocking on the door, sort of. Rudy loves him because of the name.
Yeah.
But
I'm not that Rudy.
Actually, the fun thing about Rudy Martin is about 4 years ago, I randomly picked a prospect to love, just through it, literally
totally blindly.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was Rudy Martin. So I'm
nice.
an initial.
Very proud of you.
I'm the first fan. But so we've seen how that can work, and that will benefit them because this is only year one of that, and so the depth isn't quite there yet, and maybe it will be. But at the same time, there were guys they could have brought in. I mean, there were other options they could have brought in. You look at, I don't know, the Cubs as an example. Patrick Wisdom is a guy who, I mean, they threw a dart and got lucky, honestly. But the Royals didn't throw that dart. Their dart was Kelvin Gutierrez. That was not the Cubs. I don't know if they hit the bullseye, but maybe they hit the 19.
Sure.
The Royals they hit the lady at the waiting in line for the bathroom with Kelvin Gutierrez, and she's really mad because she's got to pee and she got hit by a dart.
Now she's bleeding. Yeah,
it's an issue. So that's just kind of I'm worried that's what they're going to do and say, look, we can win in 22 because if everything goes right, they're going to be good. And they're right. If everything goes right, the Royals will win big in 22. I guarantee it. If all of their players hit their ceilings, the Royals will win 95 games. But they're not going to do it. Not every player is going to hit their ceiling.
Two things there I kind of just get the wheels turning for two sort of separate thoughts. Is one, it is significantly harder to have a team that is prepared to weather some non-best case scenarios. And so by doing that, you are probably upping your payroll to pay for somebody who can be there if Jorge Soler no longer deserves that DH spot or whatever. Or you need more success throughout your farm system so you can have some more versatility. If you're assuming the best case scenario, you can be a great baseball team with like 10 of your players hitting their ceilings, right? Like if you had the best case scenario from let's say 8 to 10 guys, you are a very good baseball team. But if you are preparing to need to have 15 or 16 guys to have 8 to 10 of them hit their ceilings, that's just a more monstrous task, which if I had to sort of present some sort of counterpoint to say, here's why I love Dayton Moore's thinking, which don't. But if I had to here, and I don't know if it's Dayton, whatever, but the idea of like, hey, let's just say we're in contention every single year. Why is that not a good way for a baseball team to be thinking that next year we're going to contend? What consequences would that have if and when that is wrong?
Well, I mean, part of it is that you end up making moves that don't actually help when you are going to win. And one of the biggest things that I've got for tomorrow is I don't really care if he thinks they're going to win in 22 as long as they don't make moves or make non-moves, I guess, or don't, you know what I mean, that impact 23 to 27.
Yeah.
And if he says, hey, we're going to win, so I'm going to go out and give Nelson Cruz a 1-year, $15 million deal, I don't care. Great,
sure.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Not my money. 1 year, it's fine.
Or I'm going to trade, I don't know, I'm going to trade for so-and-so and not give up a top prospect. I don't care.
Sure.
Do whatever you want to do, as long as you're not hurting the years that they actually could win. Because my standpoint is I think that I feel like they're closer than most people think, but not as close as the organization thinks.
Yeah.
Because I see what's going on in the minors a little bit more than, and not because I just follow it closer.
You're absolutely 100%.
I'm in it more.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
I like what I'm seeing from a lot of that. But, as long as they don't impact, as long as they don't do something to hurt those 5 years next year, I think what you want to think. I really couldn't give a rat's, you know what. It's just, it's whatever. But as soon as they start to say, oh, you know what, we're going to keep Whit Merrifield.
Right.
And we're not going to trade him for the Mariners' number 9 prospect, whoever that is.
Sure.
And it may be that, that might not be a good deal. I don't know. I haven't really looked too closely at it because I don't think they're going to trade Merrifield, so I haven't wasted my time on it.
Yeah.
But if they have an offer that is fair and they say, no, we're keeping Whit Merrifield because we're going to win next year, then you're screwing up the future. You are messing with the years that they could actually win, and that becomes a problem.
I want to sink in on Merrifield here a little bit because that is exactly right now. He's the best player that seems to be anywhere near a trade block on the Royals right now, I guess. Yeah. It sort of depends on
Scott Barlow, maybe.
Fair enough. But he's the guy. I feels like it. Am I wrong to say that it seems like there is a decent chance they do trade Scott Barlow though? Like that he probably.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting
You know what, Lesky? Let's start with Scott Barlow.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
So when they picked up Joel Payamps yesterday from the Blue Jays, now not pretty nondescript, but he was having a good year.
Option straight to Omaha, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
2.7 ERA. The batting average on balls in play was pretty low. He didn't get enough strikeouts. There were a lot of things that said he was probably pitching above his head a little bit, but he wasn't. He was. Even if he reverted back to what he quote should be, it's fine.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Royals bullpen that I like, there's depth. The Royals bullpen. The issue with the Royals bullpen is the Royals rotation, 100%.
Yeah.
If they can get more innings, they wouldn't be so tired. And the bullpen is a spot. You've got Dylan Coleman in Omaha pumping 101 with control. That he'll be up soon.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Zuber, we've seen. If he throws strikes, he's good. Richard Lovelady, we don't know yet, but he's going to get a chance. Daniel Tillo's rehabbing. He's 10 days into it, so that means he's got 20 days left. At some point, he'll probably be up at some point this year, or maybe not. Maybe he'll be out. Whatever. They have enough depth, and the Payamps pickup indicated to me that maybe, look, hey, we're ready to deal a guy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And so just to fill in, and obviously they've got Wade Davis and Irvin Santana sitting in the bullpen for some reason, I guess.
Well, they got to keep them because in 2 years from now, whenever those guys are AARP eligible, that's when they're going to really need to be able to close some World Series games.
Well,
it's a tax break. And how if you employ the elder, I think people over a certain age, the elderly, you get tax breaks.
Well, they probably get discounts on hotels on the road.
Absolutely.
And so it saves some money. So I get it.
Good breakfast deals for the young players.
Yes, absolutely. So I understand that. But so I think Barlow has a chance to be moved. You don't see guys like him traded that often, not midseason at least. In the last, relievers tend to get traded in their walk years. You don't see a lot of great returns for relievers because teams don't trade a lot for 22 innings.
Right.
But you look back to the deal that I think about all the time is the Brad Hand deal back in 2017, 18, whatever it was, where the Padres traded Hand to the Indians and they got back Francisco Mejia, who at the time was a top 20, top 30 prospect in baseball. Hand was not necessarily pitching better than Barlow at the time, but he had a better track record. So you're probably not going to get that deal. But Barlow's got 3 years of control after this season. If you need a relief, and he's consistently been solid to good.
Yeah.
So I think he could bring back a decent amount. I think they could move him, and I think they might be preparing to move him. The problem with the rest of the bullpen, Zimmer, too much injury issue. Stamont hasn't been great this year. Now, a team might look at that and say, you know what, it's probably COVID related.
Sure.
He started the year, just one of those years. And when you get a guy that throws that curveball on 99, you'll take him. So maybe he could get moved. Brent isn't going anywhere, and there's no track record. And those are the big four with Barlow. And Holland. I mean, Holland can bring back a number 53 prospect in an organization, which is fine.
Sure.
It's really totally fine.
Yeah.
But I think they're preparing to move one of them, maybe two, if they can. And yeah, I could see it.
In the space that they're in right now, if you think you could get yourself a decent little haul for Scott Barlow with some control left, I understand why he's valuable to the Royals. It's also why he's valuable to anyone else.
But the thing about Barlow too, like the thing one of the things that I think the Royals need if they want to win next year, they need a closer.
Yeah.
Not Scott Barlow, not Josh Dama, not Kyle Zimmer, not Jake Brent. They need a Liam Hendricks. They need what Trevor Rosenthal was last season. Whoever you think is the best closer, not top 10. They need somebody like that. The problem is there's not a lot out there.
Sure.
Raisel Iglesias is a free agent. I don't know if you believe that he's the guy, but
I didn't believe he was a guy until you said his name just now.
There you go. So I've taught you today.
You have. You really have.
When did Mike Bordick get fired?
On your birthday.
There it is.
I don't remember what year.
This
year.
Was
this year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
January 26th.
There it is.
Excellent.
Anyway, yes, I think that Barlow is a good reliever. Barlow should be the guy that they treat Kyle Zimmer as. Barlow in a good bullpen.
Yeah.
In a really good bullpen that isn't filled with seventh inning guys. And that's what the Royals are. They're seventh and eighth inning guys. Now, that's not to say they can't be closers. And I don't
but trade Scott Barlow, get the return back, and see if any of the other 7 inning guys can become closers.
Exactly. And that guy could be Dylan Coleman.
Sure.
That guy could end up being Tyler Zuber or Daniel Tillo or Jake Brents. I mean, they've got so many options that they should probably be moving Barlow right now.
Their most valuable one.
Right. Yeah. And we learned the lesson with Joakim Soria. They didn't move him.
Yeah.
Got hurt. And they got nothing for him, which, I don't know what they would have gotten for it. It was a different market back then. But, I remember the Twins traded, what was their closer? Matt Capps, I want to say, for, I think, Wilson Ramos, who is still around, but not good. Well, actually, he's not around anymore. He got released. But he was good enough to get a multi-year deal just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So back then, closers were going for different, they made the mistake once. They shouldn't make it again.
Yeah. So explain to me if you feel differently on any realistic level with Whit Merrifield, because here's the thing, and this is maybe I'm doing this across sports now in a way that I'm not super comfortable with, but might just be the case. Like, you could build me an argument for the value of having Whit Merrifield on a very young team that has a lot of growing to do. You want to have a professional baseball player who is very good at every single spot he's on the field and is an excellent hitter and is a guy that you want to be there whenever you have more of these prospects coming up. I think there is an easy argument for those intangibles. I also think you can get that from a decent number of veterans who are sticking around on a younger roster. And if that is your best argument, I don't think it's a very strong one in terms of not seeing what you can get or jacking up the price as high as possible and then not ultimately pulling the trigger on Whit Merrifield, because I just don't. Whatever influence he can have over the next couple of years, so be it, I guess. But a 34-year-old Whit Merrifield 2 years from now, even with if you do get best case scenarios from a bunch of guys from your system and you can plug some of the holes in free agency, whatever, that's no way to build a contender in my mind. So tell me where you're at with Whit right now.
Let me ask you a question.
Ask me.
Has Whit Merrifield ever won anything?
No, not. I mean, batting titles, I guess.
He won in college,
right?
Obviously,
and yeah.
The Royals are really big on this whole.
That's a great point.
Winning, and Merrifield hasn't done that, and it's not his fault.
Sure, of course.
He would have won if he had a better team around him.
Yes.
So that's not.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's his fault, but outside of the work, what does he have to impart as a veteran? And I know that's such a terrible way to think about it, because obviously he has a lot. I mean, he's a good base runner. He's versatile, so he can show younger guys how to be versatile, like what to do, how to prepare to play right field one day and second base the next, all that. Great.
Sure.
But at the same time,
what separates it from Hunter Dozier though? In that, like,
right?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to ask you another. So using W or weighted runs created plus, so 100's perfectly average. Where do you think Witt sits right now?
I mean,
5.
Yeah, I like.
He is 96.
Ooh,
I would have gone north of that. Oh, Nicky Lopez is north of that.
Nicky Lopez is 96.
Oh boy,
they are identical.
Oh boy.
No, I'm not saying they're identical players. And Lopez doesn't play outfield.
I'm saying they're.
Okay.
I'm saying they're identical players because Nicky Lopez is better.
Oh boy, shots are fired.
Nobody tweet me ever.
But I think part of what makes Witt even more tradable today than a year ago is that Nicky Lopez has kind of figured it out. And I'm not saying that you want to trade Merrifield and move Lopez to the top. No, I want Lopez staying in the number 9 spot.
Yeah.
But when you've got a guy who can do what Lopez has done, he cannot be the star of the team. Whit Merrifield is the absolute, with Perez, the star of the team.
Sure.
And that's fine.
Yep.
But what, outside of the intangibles, which, look, I'm not completely discounting, what does Lopez do that Witt doesn't? Or what does Witt do that Lopez doesn't? And it's a little more power.
Sure.
He's a better base stealer. And he's more versatile.
He's done it longer, but that also means he's older.
Right. And Merrifield has steadily declined.
Yeah.
This is not 2018 Whit Merrifield was maybe 2019. 2018, you can make an argument either way, was his peak. And then last year he declined, and then this year he's declined, and he's still a really good player. It's so difficult because anytime you talk about I talk about Salvi struggling with some receiving stuff, and I get hate tweets for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's not a great catcher.
Tweet about Frank Clark sometime. And
I hear you.
Yeah.
But the point is, Merrifield, he's 32.
Yeah.
I know some guys get better, but there are laws of aging. Guys don't tend to get better. And Merrifield's one of the few guys who I wouldn't put it past because he's hard-headed and all that, and I love, he's a good player. I love having him on the Royals. On the team that I watch and cover every day, I love having him there. But I think he's more valuable, again, to the 23 to 27 Royals in a different uniform. He's got a, $2.5 million, whatever it is, contract next season, which he negotiated because there's a chance there would be a lockout or a strike. I get it. But he's super cheap next year. Yep. So even if he sucks, well, whatever. He's a versatile guy. He'll steal you bases and good face for the team. All this stuff. He fits anywhere because every team needs either a second baseman, left fielder, right fielder, utility guy. I bet if you gave him a first baseman's mitt, he'd be a really good first baseman within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think about Jose Offerman, how good he was at first base back in the 90s. He was a bad shortstop, good second baseman, amazing first baseman. So there's a spot for him pretty much anywhere. It just doesn't make sense to spend the time with him and not get the prospect capital back at this point.
It's going to be really annoying when exactly that happens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I love there's so many this team could use him. Here's the trade. This team could use him. Here's the trade. Yep. And then John Heyman comes out. Well, they're willing to move him, but only if you give up the number one prospect in baseball. Even if you don't have that, you need to find a way to get Adley Rutschman, and then right. You can get Whit Merrifield. And also you have to get the number 2 prospect, you've got to clone Bobby Witt Jr.
We want major league ready prospects who are ready for a Hall of Fame career.
Right, they have to be MVP level yesterday. And once they find that, he'll be gone.
And also, we just realized that we should have drafted Kumar Rocker. We would like him too. So if you could just get him from the Mets,
but also
add him to the package.
You offer Shohei. Sorry, we want 2 players, not 1.
That's exactly right.
Right, a 1-for-1 doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense for the Royals.
They're he can play 2 spots. No, it's not how this works.
Not the All-Star game, guys.
I just hope the Royals turn their stove on at some point during hot stove. I just want their stove to
boil
be
some water.
Just too hot to touch. Is all I would add. It doesn't have to singe. It's just
throw some noodles in.
Just hot enough to boil some noodles. David Lesky of Inside the Crown. More next.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Do you want to make us smarter, Lesky? This show's been really stupid today. We could really use like a smart adult.
Well, then you've come to the wrong place. But I'll do my best.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
David Lesky of Inside the Crown in studio with us for the entire hour here tonight on Almost Entirely Sports. IntoTheCrown.substack.com. Inside, not into, which I don't think I said earlier, but I probably didn't enunciate very well, which is something I should be better at for my job. Into the Crown. Well, go to IntoTheCrown.substack.com. You can figure it out. Just try to guess the consonants and vowels and where they all go. Or follow him on Twitter at
Who really
DBLesky.
needs vowels?
Who really needs vowels?
Just saying.
You've only got one in your entire Twitter handle.
Mazzucato.
That's true.
It is true.
That's something you've thought about, I feel like.
No, I was just thinking that, it's easier to just maybe remember at DB Lesky to go to Twitter, and you can see all the links and everything. When you said the vowel thing, like, you know what? D, that's a consonant. B, I went kind of through that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then came up with
Twitter
one.
itself didn't used to have any vowels. It was TWTTR.
Was it really?
Yeah.
They added both of them back.
I did not know that.
It wouldn't have surprised me if they would have just been like Twit R. If they would have said, hey, that second E we don't really need. That's very, very flicker, that kind of like flicker.
That's very Jack.
But it's just so very
Such
Jack.
a Jack move.
And I guess they put both vowels back in.
They did.
So good for them.
Yeah.
The Royals won were they both day games against the Brewers? They were, right?
Yeah.
They won back-to-back games against a good baseball team after not playing very well against the worst team in baseball.
They're 3-2 since the break.
Yeah, one game got moved up because of the second Milwaukee game was a night game, got moved to a day game.
No, the first one.
Or the first one.
Yeah.
Because Game 6 was in Milwaukee, so they didn't want
I wasn't going to say it.
They didn't want those games played at the same time.
I did appreciate the Royals proving that you can actually win a sporting event in the city of Milwaukee.
To be fair, though, the Brewers are good, but they don't have an alien.
I would trade, believe it or not, you guys, I would trade that Royals dub for a Suns one if given the chance.
You shut your mouth.
Would you,
believe
though?
It.
The Royals are 4-0 against the Brewers this year.
Yeah.
I would have them drop to, you know what, I'd cost all 4 of those games to get that Suns game back. They'd drop to they would drop from a majestic 39-55 to 39-55 to 35-59.
I mean, how many Royals wins do I need to trade away for them to have the first overall pick to give you a Suns win? Because I'll do that.
A lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
The Diamondbacks are real bad.
It's funny. My dad was
terrible.
asking because he like obviously watched Royals, but not really following the
For
rest
them to
of baseball.
underdraft some kid that plays baseball in Dayton Moore's backyard, come on, Rudy. I don't know. Don't get
Well,
your hopes up.
but to be fair, this time around when he does that,
Hold on, time out really
the
quick.
number
Hold
one
on,
overall pick.
Hold on, Bob. Listen, Bobby Witt. By the
Make a
way,
joke.
Bobby Witt. I don't want to.
Probably
I
not
just
great.
no. I just don't. It's not a
joke
joke.
will
I
be
just want.
better.
I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, it'll be nice for you to know what that feels
My
like.
joke is definitely gonna be better.
I know what
here.
your joke is. I'll let you reset it up. I just want to say that I'm rescinding some Dayton Moore slander because he did draft Bobby Witt. Okay, go ahead, Rudy. Go ahead and set it up again.
This time, though, when he drafts the underwhelming player, everybody's like, oh, why would you draft the guy? It's actually the right pick because Robert Moore is the next A-Rod.
Literally played baseball in his backyard.
Yeah.
On a
Literally
very,
played
very
baseball in
literal
his backyard.
basis, I guess. Yeah.
And hit, the pitcher who they drafted in the second round, whose name, Kudner.
Kudner.
Anyways, Robert Moore hit his car. Like he was backing up a parking spot, backed up into Kudner's car.
On purpose?
I think it was on accident. I would assume it was on
I prefer the
accident.
story as if it's on
Yeah,
purpose.
you know what? It was on purpose.
So you mentioned earlier, Lesky, that the Giants are really good and nobody really. I'm gonna move this snowman now. By the way, I can't really see Lesky, so I'm gonna just
if
go
I
ahead
can?
and read. No, the mic I can see through. The snowman got really distracting partway through last segment. So the Giants are 60-35.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I did not realize the Giants were good until the All-Star break. The Giants being great this year just somehow escaped me. I just assumed the NL West was just Dodgers, Padres. And then all of a sudden I saw the Giants record. I was like, wait, how did this happen? And I just didn't hear anything about it.
Are they still in first?
They are.
Are they tied now, or are they up by a game?
They are 2 games up on the Dodgers, even though the Dodgers are only 1 back in the win column right now.
Okay.
But the Diamondbacks are 31.5 games back with 30 wins.
Is that good?
Not really. You're the baseball expert. But I will say, the Orioles are at 31. The Diamondbacks are at 30. The Royals at 39. It's not we've seen some losing streaks.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
the problem is so has Baltimore and Arizona.
Sure.
The Royals were just too good at the beginning of the year. My guess is Baltimore and Arizona don't have the Royals start to the season.
I think
they don't have that
Diamondbacks
stretch.
are the only team worse than the Royals since the 16-9 start.
Yeah, checks out.
Because they had multiple 10-game losing streaks, whereas the Royals have only had one. They lost 9 in a row, but that's not a 10-game losing streak.
It's not.
So, World Series, here we come.
The Royals have a minus 95 run differential. Not good. The Diamondbacks, though, are minus 145.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
At least they don't break your heart at the end, those D-backs.
You could argue, though,
they let you know in the third inning.
You could argue they're very good at knowing what they want to do. But they don't want to win.
They're not.
They're not, though. Do you know what the Diamondbacks have done their last 4 games?
Oh, wait, have they won?
Win! They're on a 4-game winning streak.
Not only have they won, but they were not trying to lose this year. I mean, this is like 2018 Orioles stuff.
Oof.
Because the Orioles, think back, the Orioles have been rebuilding now for a while, but 2018, they were not. I don't know, maybe they weren't trying to win. They had Chris Davis playing every day, but yeah, they theoretically were trying to put a good lineup out there. I think that was
Chris
the year
Davis was their Jorge Soler that year.
That's true.
He's going to get going eventually.
Was that the year they traded Machado? Do they have him in 2018? I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I believe
you can't seriously be expecting me to answer that question.
Look, I'm asking it
because there's no way Machado's been in San Diego for 4 years now. Like this is his 3rd year.
The Diamondbacks are tied for the second longest winning streak in baseball right now. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, and the Royals are at 2 in a row. So you know what the longest is?
I do. And I learned this from listening to a Sports Center at some point today.
Freaking Tigers.
The Detroit Tigers have won 7 in a row. The Yankees and D-backs are both at 4 in a row.
The Tigers are 5 games under.
Out in the back of a 7-game winning streak.
Go Tigers.
Crazy.
They are, man. Look, if you want to get optimistic about the Royals, truly, the Tigers are the blueprint. Their young pitchers last season kind of did what the Royals' young pitchers this season are doing, and they've figured some things out. Now, you might want to take a look at what they did at pitching coach.
Did they?
Do they have a good one?
They have a good one, not a bad one.
Did they learn a third pitch?
They have pitchers who have multiple pitches.
Do they see the value in a third pitch?
Believe me, man.
I believe they do.
No, thank you for saying that, Rudy, because I wanted to ask Lesky about this, and I had moved away from my Google Doc to just look at bad Royals stats.
Thanks, Rudy.
Brady Singer says after the game, before going to the IL, doesn't matter if I have a third pitch or not.
Actually, hang on. What he said first was...
So Brady, actually we can play the audio here really quick. Beard, just go ahead and hit spacebar. It doesn't matter if I have a third pitch or not. It's going to get hit anyway. I've got to be able to get it over the plate. Something to that effect,
Yeah,
I think. I'm paraphrasing.
That logic is just...
And you agree, of course.
Yes.
You're telling us before we came back from break that you think he's right.
I think he's absolutely right. No need for a third pitch. Just keep throwing up the junk that you throw. Never change. It'll eventually work because big league hitters don't adjust ever to anything.
So I actually want your actual real life thoughts on this, but let me give you my not a baseball expert thought process here. Even I know that having more pitches makes everything else more difficult for the hitter because they don't know what's coming. That seems really glaringly obvious to me. Mm-hmm. A bit of a baseball, not a casual on the grand scheme of things, but not the sport that I spend most of my time, eating and breathing. How does Brady Singer, if I don't know or care if it's Singer or if it's Cal Eldred, how does that unit of those two guys, how do they get to that conclusion?
Arrogance? Maybe? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is because it's ridiculous. And you don't have to look any farther back than yesterday's start by Brad Keller. Brad Keller made some mistakes in the middle of the plate. Now, the Brewers, one of them they hit hard to dead center field, didn't go out. Taylor got there. Great. You can make mistakes if you have a couple of things, if you're locating outside of the mistakes, and if you can give hitters a few different looks. Brad Keller, for all of his faults, his 4-seam fastball and his 2-seam fastball are different pitches. People say, oh, he's got a fastball and a slider. No, he's got a 4-seam fastball, a 2-seam fastball, and a slider. I think he probably still needs something off speed more than the slider.
Mm-hmm.
He threw like 6 changeups yesterday. They were like 90 miles per hour. It was a hard changeup. I think he needs some more separation. That's another story. But he was locating better outside of the middle pitches. And so when they happen, you can make that mistake. The problem is when you have 2 pitches that are always in the same spot, you cannot make that mistake. Because the reality is he made the mistake 6 times and got hit 3 times probably. I mean, I'm making up numbers here. Sure. But if you make it, Brad Keller made the mistake 3 times and they were the 3 times that didn't get hit. You can't keep making that mistake. If you have a changeup, maybe it's in the middle of the plate, but they're geared up for 94 and it's 83. Okay, swing and a miss. Great. But instead, Brady Singer has said, I don't need it.
Doesn't matter. Wouldn't do me any good.
And it's not the first time he's laughed off the talk. This was back in, I want to say it was the Blue Jays start in April. He was really good. And yes, this is sticking with me because Brady Singer irks me to no end. And I think it was an Alec Lewis question again. And he kind of laughed off needing a changeup. And everybody's going, you don't think about it when he pitched well.
Yeah.
Because he pitched well. But the reality is, he needs and I don't care if it's a changeup. I don't care if he goes splitter or cutter or knuckleball or learns Mike Minor's knuckle curve or whatever. I don't care what it is. He needs a different pitch.
Throw a fastball left-handed.
Throw it with his left foot.
Yeah.
Kick it. Yeah.
That would be.
Try something.
I mean, that would sell tickets.
For sure.
So it's a huge moneymaker.
It's also just the refusal, and this is kind of falls into Cal Eldridge as well, of it's clearly not working, right? You have success here and there, and I guess he's having just enough that it's causing the unwillingness to want to change, but you haven't done anything that impressive since you got called up. You haven't improved. Why? It's just the refusal to want to get better. It seems like that. Yeah. I'm just going to keep putting this square peg in this round hole, and eventually, if I just put with enough force, it's gonna get through.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember what the broadcast said. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were talking about the whole idea about is it a developmental year or is it not? And Matheny got mad about it being a developmental year and talking about making Brady Singer throw changeups and all that. And all I could think about was the guy who came in and had to throw 6 innings because Brady Singer couldn't get through 3.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we want you to throw your curveball more. And you know what Chris Bubich has done? He's throwing his curveball more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's better. I'm not saying he's going to be an ace or even a big league starter long term. I personally like Chris Bubich, but he's trying to get better.
Yeah.
And Brady Singer does not appear to ever be trying to get better. He appears to be saying, I'm good enough as is. It'll get there. It'll be fine. Based on, and this is coming full circle, based on the hope that the best case scenario is going to happen. And you can't do that.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
We all got excited about the guy who wanted to fight rain, and maybe it turns out that might have been a red flag. Maybe that was kind
he
of
also wants to fight a changeup.
He is the young man yelling at the clouds, literally.
Right. No, we can take a break here, Beards. I wanted to get through. I wanted to get a little Brady Singer talk, and we'll take a break. Whenever we come back, we're gonna have to do some more math. I feel like we're never gonna get to one of Lesky's long teased stories, but we'll either get to one of those whenever we come back, or we'll talk about something else that frustrates us from the Royals, a team that could be contending next year. Maybe is this year even still a contention? Is it about the future? It's hard to say. It's just that they're 39-55, and that just it's really at this point. I think probably too soon to make a call. It's like whenever only 98% of the votes are in on election night. There's still votes to come
51-17. They're a playoff team.
And I mean, look, you gonna tell me it's impossible? I've seen Ted Lasso. Believe. Got the sign up over the door. Oh, it fell down. Nope, they're not gonna do that.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
You talked to me about Chili's, and I'm going to see if I can confirm something that I'm pretty sure is true about the Nationals World Series ring.
Okay, well, so here's my thing on Chili's.
With Joshua Brisco.
It's garbage.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We don't have enough time for full story time with Lesky, so that bit will start right around the time we fully stop caring about baseball on this show.
Off season.
So
or August.
Really soon. Maybe
after the deadline.
Yesterday.
Yeah, after the deadline is probably a pretty good call. Yeah. But I said, hey, Lesky, is there anything you wanna talk about in the last minute of your hour? And you said your dog was sad today.
Yeah, so one of my dogs had to go to the vet today, and the other one was home just moping around looking for him all day long. It was really sad.
Well, what was wrong with the dog that had to go to the vet?
It's not. So we thought it was a cyst on his back, and the vet was like, "Hey, we think it's a cyst, but we're gonna check to see if it's a tumor." I'm like, "Oh
boy."
So he calls. He goes, "Well, it's not a cyst or a tumor." And he said what it was. I don't know what it is. He said it's gonna go away on its own, whatever. But my other dog was just roaming around the house, missing his buddy.
Yeah.
And so when we went to get the other dog, we took him, and he was in the car, and his ears perked up, and it was adorable. And then I spent $110 to have the dog's bump on his back checked out, and I was like, I hate both of you.
Well, I'm glad that your dogs are happy.
They are. They're happy now. They're sleepy now, probably.
Me too. Thank you,
You're
Lesky.
listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Outdoor grill.
I'm Mark Robbins. The NFL issuing a memo to its teams today and a warning in it, threatening forfeits instead of rescheduling games that aren't played due to any COVID-19 outbreaks within those teams. In addition, if a game is forfeited, players on both squads would lose that game paycheck. The league is urging teams to get all players and staff vaccinated. Here's ESPN NFL analyst Louis Riddick.
And the way I see it is this. Look, the NFL is a big business, right? It really is. And they're trying to come up with ways in which they can get their business back off the ground and get it back to normal and get it back to the normal revenue-generating machine that it is, all while at the same time trying to keep its players healthy and trying to protect everyone from one another, so to speak. And they have to set certain number of rules for players who are vaccinated and who aren't vaccinated.
That's ESPN NFL analyst Louis Riddick. Cowboys defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, after offseason back surgery, will start the training camp on the PUP, the physically unable to perform list. The NHL releasing its schedule for the upcoming season with realigned divisions. The expansion Seattle Kraken will play in the Pacific Division and begin play on October 12th at Las Vegas. Tampa Bay will host Pittsburgh on October 12th. Both those games on ESPN and ESPN+. Major League Baseball, the rain has stopped in Boston. Red Sox and Yankees playing again. Yanks lead it 1-0 in the sixth. Elsewhere, Atlanta leading the Phillies 6-2. They're going to the ninth. San Diego leads Miami 3-0.
Hey, it's Greeny, headed towards a football Friday. Training camps are open. The Steelers and Cowboys have begun. The rest are right around the corner. We'll have all the big stories covered for you. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
You know what they're probably not going to talk about on ESPN? On ESPN Radio that gets potted up here in a little bit? Too many Spider Boys.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We've had a few interesting, super big picture stories pop up over the last, day. Mm-hmm. I think it really has been just pretty much the last 24 hours or so. And I want to talk about both of the big ones with our friend Harold Kuntz of Fox 4. I made a cameo on our pickleball night a little while ago. But also, Harold, I got to say, one of the reasons I knew that you would be the person that I wanted to talk to tonight about some of this conference realignment stuff is your time in Oklahoma. I figured you have probably some pretty good insight into the mind of the Sooners as all of this is shuffling around. So how's your day been so far as you've sort of tracked the conference realignment rumors that have moved incredibly fast in the last 24 hours or so?
Well, first, happy training camp eve to both of you fine gentlemen.
And to you.
I can't begin to tell you my just happiness of having to go to St. Joe on a somewhat daily basis.
Yes.
It's fantastic. One of 4 teams, by the way. One of 4 teams in the NFL that still do this whole we got to go to college. Anyway, not like I'm bad about it or anything.
No, beautiful St. Joe, great people. You know, they take care of us up there. They do a good job. It's just an hour. It's just an hour or so farther than I usually drive to work. You know, it's a long drive, long commute.
Exactly. For the same work that we can do, I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes away. But anyway,
yeah, it's right there.
Go to Il Lazzarone, get some pizza.
That's true. Do go to Il Lazzarone.
That's true. I never really did the whole St. Joe thing because I just usually go there and out of disgust just immediately leave. So I never really actually went. And I mean, for your listeners in St. Joe, it's nothing against you. Honestly, it's nothing against you. It's the whole waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning and getting up there and I'm just that's a me problem more than anything. But back to college football. Yeah, it's funny. I actually texted one of my coworkers is now the lead hand for the governor of Oklahoma. And I was texting him earlier, and the governor of Oklahoma, he's an Oklahoma State grad. And I was like, how ticked is he? And, what is he going to do about legislation? He's like, well, as you know, Oklahoma has, plenty more problems to deal with than college football. I do know that, but I'm also it's going to come up soon, right? It's probably, it might be 14th on the list, but it's going to be 4th.
Yeah.
Sometime soon. And I see why Oklahoma's doing it. I see why Texas is doing it. Merit-wise, I can see why Oklahoma is doing it as opposed to Texas. Merit-wise, even though Texas is very good at every sport overall. But it's time. I think the big thing was when you're looking at television contracts, which basically pays your money.
Yeah.
And when Fox and ESPN comes to you and says, like, well, let's think about it. Let's stew on your television contract there. Because, again, let's look at a daily Big 12 schedule, like on a weekday.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Oklahoma plays Kansas State, Texas plays West Virginia. Those are two solid games. But after that, what are you selling? Like, do I really want to watch? Like, Texas Tech Kansas was put on FS2 the last week of the season. Fox had to promote Kansas State Texas the last week of the season. Like, it was a big game. And then, ESPN could fit in and get like Oklahoma versus somebody. And sometimes they have to put those games on prime time. And this season, if it's not Iowa State or Oklahoma or, Texas, just because of the name cachet, I mean, it's hard to sell a prime time game there, especially when ESPN just bought the SEC rights and has the 2:30 time slot in a couple of years coming when they take it from CBS. I mean, it's a hard get. So, I mean, it's just, frankly, if you're Oklahoma or Texas and you believe you're a brand, which they are a brand, in football especially, you have to think to yourself, what's best for us? Or do we want to play some 11 a.m. games on Fox, which hurts our recruiting, or or even, God forbid, start at 8 o'clock on FS1, which also hurts recruiting and hurts interest. I mean, Texas, and I'm sure you guys saw the tweet I put out about Texas. Well, it wasn't my tweet, but it was obviously Brett McMurphy's, who's, as sourced as anybody in college football. When he comes out and says, like, well, some Texas parents are like, we're not getting hyped about watching Kansas or Kansas State. I mean, there's two arguments to that. One, there's the argument that obviously Kansas and Kansas State have given them competitive games at their OK Royal Stadium.
Right.
But there's also the argument that, like, if I'm a Texas fan, like, over the years in the Southwest Conference, they knew they were at least getting the A&M every 2 years. Like, there would be SMU had the Dickerson years. Houston had the Andre Ward years. They've had so many good years. It's like somebody, and then non-conference, they just schedule whoever they want to come by Austin. They don't get that anymore. And they just, that's their thinking. That's Texas's thinking. Do I agree with the thinking? No. But is it their thinking? Yes. And this is why we're in the position we're in.
Yeah. I think the Texas side there is the most interesting for the reason that we talked about a little bit earlier, and you kind of touched on there a second ago of, like, they're not real. The merit of Texas football has not been there for a considerable amount of time at this point. But to your point there in that tweet and in that analysis, the issue isn't even like the quality of the games. It's when the games are being played and what channel the games are being played on. And you said the TV deals are essentially paying the bills. And if you can't sell a 50-48 game against KU or a couple of K-State games, where you have a game that goes, by a field goal and one that goes into double overtime, it's not even a question of the product there as much as it's a question of the marketing. And if you're going to make that argument and say the SEC is the solution to having better marketing and getting more eyes on your games, which, as you said, also helps recruiting and everything, I think that's hard logic to argue if that's the lens you're looking through. And it seems like that's got to be the lens they're looking through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look forward, one of the few things Bob Bowlesby's gotten right, the Big 12 commissioner, of course, is that he knows things are going to go towards streaming and more. They need more and more content on the ESPN Pluses of the world, not Sports Goes of the world. Who knows if there's Notre Dame might have a game exclusively on Peacock. It's going to happen. Like we're getting there because they know that live sports get you to buy things. Like I was like, what if we lived in a world? Think about this: if I wanted Netflix, if Stranger Things didn't exist, and a few others like Nailed It and a couple other things. I'm really only listing shows my wife watches.
Nailed It surprised me, to be honest, but I was going to let it go.
Yeah. Well, she loves Nailed It. But
that show stresses me out, man. I'm a Great British Bake Off guy because that show is soothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Nailed It stresses me out.
But I'm just, Stranger Things and Heist, 13 Reasons Why, like very popular. Tiger King, popular Netflix shows. There's a day where like they're going to be like, all right, well, we're going to get behind the times when Amazon gets some sports, and Paramount Plus gets some sports, and a couple others. And they're like, well, what do we have to offer here? It's like, we got money. Let's go buy Pac-12 rights. We're in California. Let's do it. Next thing you know, like that, and Pac-12's like, well, what are you selling us? It's like, well, we have USC football. That's great. What else do you have? Like more. That's why you want more teams. Amazon is going to get the NFL rights, but they can pick the teams that play on Thursday.
Yeah,
they're paying a ton of money for that.
Yeah,
like I told people, get prepared for when the Chiefs are playing exclusively on it, like only on Amazon against the Raiders or Broncos or somebody, and you got to get Amazon. You're out of luck.
Yeah.
So that's just, so it's going to become a time like ESPN Plus is like, all right, there's going to be a day where the SEC has so much product they can afford to put Kentucky versus Vanderbilt on ESPN Plus, and no people are going to watch it. So that's just where they're headed. And so if you have Oklahoma and Texas and you're the SEC, your bottom line right now, if you're the SEC, was what's the worst possible match we can have at the SEC?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably Vanderbilt versus someone. Now, like you have Oklahoma and Texas, you can put one game on ESPN, you put another game on ESPN2, you can put a game on ABC, and then you have 5 other games you can put on ESPN Plus that are still decent quality.
Yeah.
If you take that's where they are right now.
That's super interesting to me because I haven't thinking about it that way. Basically, makes the SEC the NFL. Like that is essentially what it's sort of. It's a little bit of the Super League, right? Like that's it's sort of that logic, and I haven't really thought about it that way from the SEC's perspective. So do you think then it's essentially a done deal that because at least as of yesterday, A&M and Mizzou looked like there would be no votes. I think the SEC would need 4 no votes to not add anybody. OU and Texas clearly seem very much like they want in officially. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion now with all of that logic?
I believe it is. It's just a matter of timing. Do they wait until 2024 or 25 when the grant of rights runs out with the Big 12? You saw a statement earlier tonight where basically the other schools, the Big 8, pro, that it's the Big 8 and KU still in it. Mm-hmm. But you're discussing a matter of like, well, we get it. You guys are going to leave, but you're going to owe us a solid $50, $60, $70 million. Mm-hmm. Or you can just stick around and we can figure out what we do next while you guys leave.
Yeah.
So that's basically what that said. We know what's happening. You're not stopping them. Because Texas and Oklahoma, between the both of them, have more say than the other 8 schools combined. Because if you look at the revenues for sports, especially from a television event, like the SEC network exists because they got tired of someone got tired of Georgia's homecoming game against Murray State not being on television. They made a network. The Big 12 does not have that option.
Yeah.
They have ESPN Plus, obviously, but I can recall all 3 games, or all 2, Kansas State and Kansas games, both be on ESPN Plus on the same day. I can recall that. There's no need for them to be on regular television. So, now we can put on in the basketballs, whatever. You can put basketball wherever you want because everybody knows you're paying attention to March.
Right.
And, Olympic sports are Olympic sports. That's just, it's what really upsets me. If other schools like the K-State or KU or Iowa State should be upset is that they didn't see this coming. Because they look genuinely kind of shook that this happened to them.
Yeah.
They should have seen this coming. Probably from a mile away. They just, maybe they had some more to work. Like, I know KU didn't have an AD for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And this organization there, K-State's about to not have a different president. There's an organization there, but, they should have seen this coming. This is an OU and Texas league, whether we all like it or not. And that's the way it's going to be now. Right? It's sad. It's coming. It's just a matter of when.
So let's go to the Big 12 standpoint here now, being the Big 8. What does their future look like with OU, without OU in Texas? Because I guess we kind of have to split that conversation into 2 halves also, I think, of basic, maybe it should be 3/3 of football, basketball, and then everything else. The slices of the pie are not quite 1/3 each, but On the football side, what are the schools? What does Iowa State do that's trying to actually have a good football program? What is the plan for? Basically, I guess does in your mind does the Big 12 end up being the dissolving remnants, or do they try to bolster themselves with some basketball schools? What would you do in their shoes?
Yeah, it's a lot of fascinating things that can happen here. The Pac-12's just got a new commissioner, and he seems to be very aggressive. He comes from the Vegas mindset. He used to run Vegas casinos, so he comes from that mindset where he seems like he could get a value bet. Say, I'm going to take 4 Big 12 teams and make you an offer because they've got a network. Pac-12's got a network, and they've been struggling with cable deals. You can't tell me that getting the Dallas-Fort Worth market, if you get a TCU and Oklahoma State, who's decent at most sports, start and maybe get Texas Tech for regional stuff. Patrick Mahomes cuts a commercial for the Pac-12 network. There's things there that they can do. So that's what happens. Or another observation I think that could happen is the Big Ten. You may know this. They're with the Association of American Universities, the AAU. What 2 teams that are still left that could make the Big Ten 16 teams? Because the Big Ten is going to want to be a super conference just like the SEC.
Right.
What 2 teams are AAU teams? That's Kansas and that's Iowa State. And I don't think Kansas has the same care for sticking around with K-State or the same ill will that, say, Texas and Texas A&M have, or even Oklahoma and Oklahoma State might have. So, and, people talk about legislation and stuff that goes on with, the state governments. Look, I used to work around West Virginia, and I remember when Marshall got so ticked off they couldn't play West Virginia, and some governor demanded that they play a 10-game series. So things can happen.
Right.
Things can happen. I was around West Virginia when they were playing Maryland in the ACC as a member of the Big East, and now one's in the Big 10 and one's in the Big 12. It's been crazy. But again, it's Kansas and Iowa State. If I'm Travis Goff, if I'm him, I'm thinking about our brand right now, and I'm saying to myself, hey, call the folks at Ames, and let's make it happen. We talk about NIL being the Wild Wild West. This should be the Wild Wild West. I should be making every call. Every call. He used to work at Northwestern. He has contacts. So make it happen. You have to think about your own right now.
Yeah.
They can say solidarity and everything, but they've got Texas and OU. They get rid of one more school in that thing's over. Because you can't do anything with 7 teams in the conference. That thing's over. So, and then West Virginia's been looking to get in the ACC, and that's where academics come into play. Look at these schools academically. The Pac-12, their worst school right now is Arizona State. Arizona State still, according to U.S. News and World Report, is still a better school academically than West Virginia, Texas Tech, Kansas State. It's right on par with Baylor. It's right, even though that's a private school, it's better than Oklahoma State academically, according to U.S. News and World Report. I'll take that for what you will. And the Pac-12 has historically said they don't want to take religious private institutions, which is why BYU's never been in the Pac-12. So Baylor and TCU, look out. Now, I can see TCU because TCU at least has the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex working for it. But, Baylor, it's scary hours.
Yeah.
It's like Kansas State. It's scary hours. Because, as I was telling somebody, Kansas State is literally 2 hours from the geographic center of the United States of America. You think somebody from Cal wants to go there?
Right.
You think somebody from, it's a lovely part of the area. It's a lovely part of the country. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, if you live on the coast of California, you see Penn State coming over. You think you're going to come over for that?
It's the longest road trip in almost any conference that would be left here, other than the Big 12.
Yeah. So it's where are you going to fly to?
Yeah.
And West Virginia has that problem too. They try to get in the ACC, which would make sense because Virginia Tech and Virginia are there, but they are not getting in them because, academics. UVA is one of the best public universities in the nation. Pittsburgh is a good school. And then you have Duke, you have UNC, another great public institution. Syracuse, Boston College, Miami. These are private institutions. These are good schools. And they rejected West Virginia. They basically told you, no thanks, before you even entered the door. So, yeah. I mean, you're at a loss of what you do if you're in other schools, but that's why you have to think of your own. And if I'm Kansas, I can hinge my thing on one thing. There's one thing you can hinge on if you're Kansas, and that is basketball.
Yep.
And you got to sell it and hope to goodness that, football can, Lance Leipold can get you to 3 wins. And look confident doing it, too.
And then, this kind of goes what you were saying, Harold. And you may have also mentioned this, and because I was trying to figure out what the name of the accreditation, but it's the Association of American Universities. It's a
AAU.
The AAU. Yeah, the Big Ten requires their universities to be AAU, and Harold might have mentioned because he taught. I know he mentioned Kansas,
KU and Iowa State. Yeah.
Yeah, it just shows it's just like it's something we don't think about because we're just always focused on obviously athletics, but like this meeting tonight, again, it's the president's. There's so much more involved in this stuff than just is your football team good? Is your basketball team good? Obviously, the brand is an appealing. Like Kansas is a brand, it is appealing, but you have to bring more to the table than just that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, especially in a conference like the Big Ten, because this is no offense to the SEC, but the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have some of the finest institutions in the world. The Pac-12 has Stanford. The Big Ten has Northwestern. University of Michigan is a great school. University of Wisconsin is a great school. Let's go back to the Pac-12. University of Washington is a great school.
Yep.
USC, UCLA, those are all good schools. Not to say that the SEC doesn't have great schools. Missouri is a good school. Florida is a good school. Georgia is a great school. Vanderbilt, obviously, is an excellent school. So, there's just things that, the presidents are going to think of that we wouldn't as fans think of.
I just keep going back to the AAC. Just as this other entity that I don't know if that's a potentially kind of weird landing spot for any of the dancers without a partner left at the end of the Big 12's potential crumbling.
We have 11 teams right now. You would imagine that 2 of them would jump at the opportunity to go to the Big 12 and fill those 2 spots. It's not going to be the same, but let's say if Cincinnati and UCF goes there, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And then you just have a trickle effect where the American will take teams from Conference USA, and the Conference USA team will take from the Sun Belt. Then the Sun Belt will take 2 teams that call up from the FCS division or something of that nature. There's a trickle effect that could happen, but it's just a confusing situation because there's money involved, there's television contracts involved. Like the Sun Belt just renewed with ESPN until 2030-31. So that should tell you something when somebody's telling you we think Louisiana Lafayette versus Coastal Carolina is just a slight bit more appealing than Kansas versus TCU. Just a slight bit more appealing. It's almost offensive. But then you realize, look at the rankings in Coastal Carolina, they were a top 15 team last year, weren't they? Louisiana Lafayette, they went to Iowa State and went on the road last year, didn't they? And they ended up in the top 20, I believe. They opened with Texas. That's not a terrible game. It's been this way in college football for years. As you said from the beginning, they've been around the Big 12 a while, and it's just, even in the state of Oklahoma, OU is the big dog.
Yeah.
There's a genuine curiosity what Oklahoma State does, but it's never like when they play, oh gosh, we're playing Oklahoma State. Because last I checked, Oklahoma State in the last 2 decades, I believe, has beat OU on the football field maybe 2 or 3 times. And one of those was 2000 or 2001 when coincidentally Les Miles was coaching Oklahoma State. And then one coincidentally was when Tyreek Hill returned the punt and Bob Stoops for some reason decided to punt the ball again on a bad penalty. So that's how it's been.
It's interesting, man. It's going to be fascinating to see where all this lands. I wanted to get your thoughts real quick on some of the NFL stuff we saw today, and then we'll let you go. But we can see the memo comes out, and my read of it is that it is the NFL in another way trying to put their foot on the scale to encourage more players to get vaccinated, and to say that also if you're not, there are even more ways this could be detrimental to you, to your team, to the team you're playing against. How did you sort of soak up some of the stuff from that memo and what it's going to mean?
I think it means what you just said, and I think every player knows now. I want to get vaccinated, but do I agree with it in terms of the wording? No. Do I agree with it from a standpoint of they're running a business, and what do most other businesses do right now? And what have most businesses done since the pandemic? Sam's Club. Sorry, we're going to make you wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Some other places. Sorry, we're going to make you wear a mask. And people didn't like it, right? Well, roles have flipped. Now that vaccinations is out there, we're not going to require you to get vaccinated, but you know what? We're darn sure going to put it in writing and make you pay us hefty fee if you don't. And that's where we are. And I mean, I'm looking forward. I mean, I'm not necessarily looking forward to tomorrow's Zoom meetings when, everybody and their mother's going to ask about COVID. Because, I mean, we're going to be sitting here asking COVID questions tomorrow when, oddly enough, last year at this time, we were sitting there at One Arrowhead Drive, basically being like, so, what's it like wearing a mask during practice?
Yep.
Or remember the one time when, what was the backup quarterback, that Jordan Ta'amu?
Yes, Jordan
Ta'amu. Ta'amu, and everybody thought, oh boy, well, Patrick Mahomes is in the same room, and you immediately saw him the next day, masked up, Travis Kelce's masked up, and here we are again. So, I mean, I would imagine the Chiefs, I mean, it's probably an honest assessment to say about 80 to 85% of them, just judging by kind of the answers that we got from them in the summer. You can safely assume that 80 to 85% of those guys, they're going to reach the threshold, I'd imagine. So it's not going to be too big of a concern here. But I mean, it's just one thing. Like, you see DeAndre Hopkins going off on Twitter, and Cole Beasley has been on one. At least, and I just don't know what to tell the guys. It's like, look, there are anti-vaxxers in this world. There are people that just, for some reason or another, they do not agree with putting something in their body, and but you have to live with the consequences.
Yeah,
and that's just what the NFL said, and it's the way of the world we live in. And I mean, in the perfect world, everybody just says what they're told to do, and we go on and we move forward amicably. But I mean, we've seen people get COVID with the vaccinations.
Right.
Totally possible. These guys are going to be practicing in St. Joe, and last I checked, the proximity of fans with the St. Joe, it's still pretty close. I mean, I don't know how many barriers we're going to have this year as opposed to the previous years, but it's still pretty close. So, I mean, it's just going to be fascinating to find out how to get through this. But let's be real here. This is actually, sadly, the first thing I thought of, and I'll leave you with this. When the NFL said we are not rescheduling games, I watched Bills Titans on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
And people watch on CBS.
Yep.
I watched Wednesday afternoon football between, I think, the Steelers and the Ravens or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right.
They'll make every effort.
Yep.
And we'll watch it.
Yep.
I'm surprised the NFL didn't get the brilliant idea that we should have Wednesday night football and Tuesday night football now, because people watched it. Yeah, I know they did. And you got 17 games, too. You can get all types of funky with the schedule. They're not rescheduling any games. And if they do, they're going to reschedule. Somebody's going to play Tuesday, and somebody's going to be ticked off. I mean, we had the Broncos go out there with a guy who was a backup quarterback at Wake Forest the year before. And they said, play ball. Don't give me that. They handed the team a win. It was the Saints, too, I believe. You can't tell me that the Saints didn't think to themselves, like, that guy went 1 for 9 for negative 1 yards passing, if I'm correct. And that's not even an exaggeration if I'm off by a couple yards. 1 for 9. Don't give me this crap, NFL. Like, you're too big business for that. So, I mean, your two big businesses insult our intelligence with that. So let's just be real. They're going to play games. We're going to have a season. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. And this whole, like, statement of we'll cancel games, we'll cut your paycheck, they're not doing that. They're not doing that. So that part of the statement, I agree with, but still, stay safe, get vaccinated if you can, and just try to live your life as safe as possible.
So in that
Something we told you last year.
Yep. we've been in repeats on that for a minute.
In that game, Taysom Hill went 9 for 16, 78 yards with an interception, and Kendall Hinton went 1 for 9, 13 yards, 2 interceptions.
There you go.
No touchdown passes were thrown.
More picks than completions.
I got the 1 for 9 right. Yeah, that must have been a heck of a one.
Yeah. I guess 13 yards and 1 completion, not the worst.
Jeez, that's a heck of a one.
Drew Lock on notice officially. Thank you, Harold. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
I got tonight, Fox 4, if you're around 10:20ish. I did a story on Lionel Dalton. He's a former Chiefs player, early mid-2000s. Back when Dick Vermeil was the head coach. He's battling stage 4 kidney cancer, and he needs a kidney transplant. And hoping the best for him. But the story on him tonight, if you want to watch. So.
Yeah, give us the time on that one more time.
Right around 10:20. The normal time your sports comes on around 10 o'clock tonight. So.
There you go. I'm sorry I didn't ask. I should have set that up for you. But there you go. About around 10:20 or so tonight on Fox 4. I'd seen a little bit about his story as of late. I'll be very interested to see what you heard from him and to get an update. Again, not a tough one, but one to keep an eye on tonight on Fox 4. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it, Harold. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Harold Kuntz. You can follow him on Twitter also, by the way, at Harold R. Kuntz 3. And, of course, you can watch him on Fox 4 here in Kansas City. Yeah, I'd seen a little bit about the show from Lionel Dalton. Again, looking for desperate need of a kidney transplant, as Harold said. It just really a tough story right now, and waiting to see if he's going to be able to get the kidney that he needs. More information, and I'm sure told very, very well tonight on the 10 o'clock newscast there on Fox 4. We'll be done at 10. Flip over to Channel 4 and see what Harold and his crew have to say, and hear a little bit more about that story. Should be a very, very interesting one. All right, well, we will take a break. Whenever we come back, I don't know, maybe we'll see if this show needs any realignment. We'll talk about some of that stuff. We'll look at some more of the NFL things. I don't know. There have been a handful of things that I've been meaning to get to this week. We also, by the way, I lied to you at some point over the week. We will have a show tomorrow night as well. Rudy won't be here, though.
I will not.
So, Beards...
Day off tomorrow. Very busy. Busy man. A lot of work to do.
Warm up those vocal cords. Get me any basketball topics you want that don't involve the Suns losing the finals. Beards. Maybe we'll do the Beards McFly NBA hour. That's been so successful so many times over the course of this show.
You give him 24 seconds and he nails it.
How many shot clocks can we get off in an hour? We'll do some of that math tomorrow. But anyway, we'll talk about some of the things we haven't gotten to yet this week whenever we come back.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
Hasta la vista, baby.
With Joshua Brisco.
What it do, baby?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Content warning on this one if you are a Chiefs fan that's not quite over it yet. The Buccaneers got their Super Bowl rings tonight. And, you know, there's all the usual details. This thing is smothered in diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
One team, one cause. Final score on there. God, it sucks. The Chiefs only scored 9 points. Couldn't even break double digits. Really miserable. But I got one sort of thing with this one.
Did you see Brady's quote?
No.
I hated it so much.
What was it?
You know what my favorite ring is?
The next one.
The next one.
I effing knew it. I swear I did not see that stat. I did not see the quote.
But the second you say like like when he yells to the crowd, you know what my favorite ring is? Like I don't need to know what he says next because you know what he says next. There's only one response.
It's the next
one. Because he's obviously not going to say, actually, it was actually my second one that I won in New England. It's like, no, it's the next one.
So here's the thing, though.
I think they're going to win another one.
This is the first. This is one of those things where the description should give you a hint, I think, about maybe the history.
Yeah.
For the first time in NFL history, a championship ring has been designed with a removable top.
To put in your forehead?
Yes. If you want to look like Vision or Lil Uzi Vert. So it looks like there's a magnet system and some clasps where you can twist off the top of the ring. And then inside of it, it says that history was made and they won their first home, blah, 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 first team to win a game in their home stadium. But there's also an engraved stadium, Raymond James Stadium, inside of the ring that I guess is kind of cool. And it's partially because, again, they won at home at Raymond James. And they, I guess, won all 4 of those at home probably, right? Weren't they the 1 seed?
No. I think they were on the road for everything until the Super Bowl.
Okay, maybe because I don't. Then I am slightly more confused by the aesthetic of this one, but whatever. And so it's got their playoff scores, and then that one in the middle, and then there is a diamond that is placed in the bottom right corner of the field on there. And I was looking at that thinking, like, is that where Antonio Brown cooked Tyrann Mathieu? Was there something else happen in that corner to like seal it? It is. I'll just read it verbatim because it's barftastic. Surrounded by the scores of the team's 4 playoff victories, the hand-engraved stadium celebrates the fact that the 2020 Buccaneers were the first team in NFL history to win the Super Bowl on their own field.
That wasn't...
I'm not done yet.
Sorry.
Excuse me, Rudy.
Do you want some NFL music to go under that?
Sorry,
sure, I'm just not quite done though. Yet,
I was
going
to
to
compliment you. I apologize.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm doing my real voice now, of course, because I've got my real voice and my radio voice and my super radio voice. But whenever it hits the music,
and then your football TV voice.
Whenever then, I'll head right back down. The single diamond on the stadium field is placed on the spot where the Buccaneers ran out of the tunnel. Like, why? Why not make the logo in the tiny logo? I don't know. Beard, do you want to pop that back up?
Oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
The word. You
Do I need to turn
start
Rudy
over.
down?
You got to start over, Rudy. Sorry, so we looped it. The word historic commemorates the achievement of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl at home in Raymond James Stadium on February 7th, 2021. All right, here, tell me which one of these you find stupidest. No, Beards, don't. No, Beards. We're going. Sorry, it's a real voice. Okay, can we work on the volume? What's going on? I'm having a panic attack.
Like Rudy's volume?
I think if we brought his volume down a little, it wouldn't hurt the bit. He's like the horn section, you know? Like you want it. Beards, you're mixing the orchestra. You're the conductor.
Yeah.
Tell me which one of these sounds the dumbest. I know my favorite one. My favorite dumb one here. 9 diamonds. On the left trophy represents 9 points allowed in Super Bowl LV. One of the fewest in NFL history. So that's 9 diamonds on the left trophy.
One of the fewest?
Yeah, no, it's miserable, dude. It's they put 9 diamonds, like, all right, what can we do with this?
Well, you know what? I had the 4th longest, consecutive game streak. I'm basically Cal Ripken over here.
I think what they were doing there was they
They put 9 diamonds on and needed a...
They put 300... What, it was what, 31-9 was the final score?
Yes.
They put 319 on there because that was what the score was. So they were trying to figure out where to put those 9.
319 diamonds on the exterior top represent the 31-9 Super Bowl 45 final score. Or 55, excuse me. I knew that. 8 emerald-cut diamonds on each side So it is 16 emerald-cut diamonds, by the way. They just have it structured this way because they need it to mean something. So there are 16 emerald-cut diamonds, but here's how this reads.
I'm confused.
8 emerald-cut diamonds on each side represent 8 straight wins, the longest in franchise history that led to the Super Bowl 55 win. They just had 6. They could not come up with something for 16. So like, what if we do 8 and 8, I guess? 4 diamonds.
Do you need more music?
Yeah, please. 4 diamonds on the Super Bowl 55 logo represent the number of division winners defeated. That one is my favorite. Now, if you're distracted, maybe you're singing along because you can't help because it's a certified bop. I get it. There are 4 diamonds on the Super Bowl logo on the side of the ring because it fills the logo pretty nicely. The stated reason is because of the number of division winners defeated.
That's dumb.
It's so dumb! It could have just been the 4 games in the playoffs. They could have just... Nope.
No.
4 diamonds represent the number of division winners defeated.
Did they put diamonds for the number of division losses they had as well?
Not that I've seen. I just love... For the first time in NFL history, a championship ring has been designed with a removable top. And that is the end of the reference of it?
That's actually not true. The Lakers one last year had a removable top.
One more time, Beards. The first time in NFL history.
To be fair, the Lakers play in the NFL.
Why? What's the point of that?
The Bucks, by the way, did play all their games on the road until the Super Bowl. Because they were the wild card. They did not win their own division.
I guess that's true. The Saints did.
They went to Maryland to play the Washington football team.
The Maryland football team.
Fair point. Then they went to Green Bay to play the Green Bay football team.
Wisconsin football team.
No. Then they went to New Orleans. Sorry. They went to New Orleans to play the New Orleans football team. Then to Green Bay to play the Green Bay football team. And then they went to Tampa Bay to play, I believe it was an exhibition game, actually. I don't think it actually fully counts. I think they're just celebrating a fake game.
Also, both Bucks teams got to celebrate with some championship hardware today, and so this is a real bleep day for me. Watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get their rings on the same day that the Milwaukee Bucks take the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
It's been hard.
That was Blind, apparently. Through the streets of Milwaukee really made me want to freaking barf.
You know what Tom Brady's favorite ring is? It's not his wedding ring because he's not a good husband, apparently. I mean, just threw Giselle right underneath the bus there.
Do you want a joke that'll get the show canceled, or do you want me to just let you answer it?
Get show canceled.
We'll take a vote. Beards, what's your vote?
Cancel the show.
What's your vote, Beards?
Cancel the show. Cancel the show.
Cast your vote, Beards.
Cancel the show.
The third option.
No, your vote's to the joke that cancels the show, or let Rudy land the plane.
Let's let Rudy land that plane for right now.
Okay. Well, I'm voting for canceling the show, and I think Tom Brady's favorite ring is this.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
The show's free. It's a free show. If you don't like
shows sometimes.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You guys want a relatively feel-good story or a kind of annoying one?
Annoy me.
I'd scroll down to the kind of good one.
No, I'm going to annoy you even more. Go to the annoying one.
Do one of you guys have something? I could save both of these for tomorrow. It would really help out on tomorrow's show without Rudy that just popped up. It really would help out if I could keep both of these for tomorrow.
I got an interesting fact.
NFL GM rankings. Is Brett Veach too high at number 3? Next on Ever Disputed.
Almost entirely
on First Disputed.
Power rankings.
Almost entirely disputed. What you got, Rudy?
So Seattle, the Sounders tonight, made history by playing 5 teenagers in their soccer game. One of them was 15 years old.
Holy bleep! It's actually it's actually on the TV in front of me right now.
Oh, it is.
And
Nice.
I saw at one point they pulled. I wasn't paying super close attention.
I think it's that Vargas is the 15-year-old. I think.
They had some sort of graphic on the screen that had several young ages. So I saw it was like 15, 17, 18, 18, or whatever.
5 of their starting 11 are teenagers.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I saw that though, and when I saw 15, I didn't think about it too hard, but I immediately just assumed they must be talking about like their system or
Seattle
something.
Sounders 2 is what their name is.
Because the idea that a
Shockingly.
15-year-old is a professional athlete in an American sport right now
And playing because
starting, right?
Because Busio is, and I don't know what and I believe it would still be the case. I believe Vargas technically when he signed his professional contract was a little bit older than Busio. At the very least, I think I heard this like a week ago. Busio was this. You probably remember Freddie Adu even, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because like he was like on the cover of Sports Illustrated stuff.
Yeah.
Only Freddie Adu.
And he might have been in
I
backyard
believe,
soccer also.
Yeah, I think he was.
Which is
I believe
really
only Freddie Adu was younger when he signed a professional contract than Busio. But to the point being, like, Busio really didn't become like a regular until he was 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And now this guy's starting for Seattle, a team who is a perennial championship contending team.
Like, I'm trying to think, do the math in your head of what year it was when you were 15 years old and try to think of something that happened then.
It was 2005 when I turned 15.
For me, would have been the very end of 2009.
I think I was 2008, yeah.
Farmer's permit, and the day I got it, where I was allowed to drive by myself,
14.
To and from school, I backed into a
Beards
car.
just waved me off for nothing.
Neither was myself. I was waving myself off.
You're just back here yelling 14.
14, 15,
Anyways,
and then he waved me off.
the day I got my farmer's permit, I backed up into another car.
Awesome.
Like literally an hour after my dad letting me, free out into the world. And just being like, hey, you're not really supposed to be driving because you're only supposed to drive to school and work, so be careful. What do? Right into a car.
That's incredible.
Now, the car wasn't moving, so it's not like it wasn't a wreck or anything. Backed up into a car. Ended up not getting out of it, not having paid any damages or anything because the person who I backed up into then was like, oh, but see all this damage it caused? And it was like, there's a big old scratch along the side. I was like, well, I backed straight into it, so there's no way there'd be a scratch all the way down the side because I'd have to be turned. And there was just like, cop was just like, yeah, like you're lying. And so I'll charge, not charges, but basically everything was just like thrown out. It was just like the guy
He
was
just
like,
went
fine,
too big.
Yeah,
He could have just.
He went way too big and was just like trying to get everything fixed on a car. And I think there was even something like on the other side of the car he tried to claim. Like I just like, no, like what?
It also wrecked my home.
And my marriage. I'm deeply unhappy and it's your fault. 15-year-old boy.
It's the reason my bank account shows zeros.
As does my wife's love.
So yeah, that was a fun
Beards, do you have a
story.
Do you have a somewhat traumatic
I also remember
car-based story?
hitting a kid as he was running.
Huh.
Maybe in cross country.
When I was how old?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna
15. When you were 15.
Did you?
When I was 15?
Yeah. Do you remember
Yeah,
anything?
that was that year.
Was it really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So this
It was
dumb
my
little
freshman year.
kid.
That was my freshman year of high school.
Oh, is it? Oh my God!
Yeah.
This little kid.
9/11/07.
What?
That was the date.
I thought I was like the version. What? I don't know. It was a joke that I couldn't quite pull around. I'm not sure. Wait, you got hit on 9/11?
07.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a bad joke in there somewhere.
Yeah,
but...
it's just,
I've also learned after the fact. I saw this years later. There's those like vests or whatever that like some runners will wear that are
like
reflective.
Yeah.
There's a brand called Nathan.
Really?
Yes. I took a picture of that.
I didn't buy it.
I should have.
I like to think of the person who hit you started that company. They're just like, you know what? I'm going to make sure this never happens again. And it's going to name it after Beers and McFly's close personal friend, Nathan.
Dude, McFly would be a much better name anyway.
Actually, yeah.
Well, no, because then when I got hit, I then McFlew through the air.
That's right. The point. If you wear the McFly reflective vest, you won't McFly after you get hit by a car.
I think that's the tagline. The commercial right now, I'm imagining. Have you guys watched?
McFly on the ground, not in the air.
Have you guys watched?
No, that's worse.
Well.
I mean, you fly.
Yeah, if you fly in the air, you're eventually going to hit the ground.
I mean, no, but by fly, it's like saying, right, if you're running, you feel like you're flying, right? So like, yeah, McFly on the ground's like running.
This is a shot clock review eventually, but if you guys watch any of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson,
no,
the Netflix show,
I'm not.
Every time I see the name for that, I keep thinking it's Tim Robbins, the actor.
That would change it a lot.
It throws me every time.
That's where the hot dog meme comes from that we're all trying to find whoever did this. Meme is from season 1 of that show. Season 2 is out. I've watched the first few episodes. It is one of the weirder comedies that you will find anywhere. At least, certainly the weirder comedies you'll find on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is a Netflix original. The episodes are all like 20 minutes. You guys just watch. Start from season 1. There's not like a through line story. It's a sketch show.
What's it on?
Netflix.
You know, I was gonna watch Ted Lasso, but I think I won't. I'll watch this instead.
You should also watch Ted Lasso, but
I can only do one of those.
Whenever you're in the mood for a very weird, funny show, watch some I Think You Should Leave, because I'm envisioning him being the pitch man for the McFly reflective jackets, and it would make me want to buy them.
I'm busy watching Beards' Lighthouse show.
I don't think there was actually a lighthouse. That's a deep cut. Show tomorrow. Until then, bye, Mom.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.